So, what we love about the podcast is we get other perspectives. Andrew and I obviously put a lot of work into sharing what we know and what we've learned. But we wanted to have a little extra fun with the podcast, but we also wanted to have other people that kind of do other things. We had interesting. In fact, one of the episodes was Aaron Rule, who is a commercial director, and he actually played Kip in Napoleon Dynamite. So if you saw that movie, and that hilarious, and then he got out of acting, got into directing. Looks like we have Bob Smith in here, and Bob Smith was actually on the podcast. Bob so it's really cool to see Bob in here. Bob is kind of a legend around Nike in Portland, and is kind of branched out into freelance. If you own any Nike sportswear, shoes, jackets, gear, anything like that, you can thank Bob, because he's kind of the de facto godfather of Nike sportswear, kind of inventing it out there in Beaverton.
You got to listen to the Bob Smith episode for that story. It's my second favorite story is where Aaron Rule talks about going to Hollywood, and he doesn't want to be an actor. So he's like sitting down with the director of Transformers, like saying, yeah, I won't audition. Michael Bay. Yeah. He had a rule. He didn't want to be an actor. He wanted to be a director. So he wouldn't actually audition. But the best story is the Bob Smith Nike sportswear story. So if you haven't listened, check out the podcast. And then I already saw someone said they needed a website. We made that checklist of the 10 things a good website needs to do. But fixing any one of those 10 things could be a couple hours of work. So we want to recognize anyone who really did a website audit and put in at least a couple of hours of work fixing your website and making it better and really thinking through what clients are looking for. Go ahead and put the link in. If you put the time in, put the link in. And maybe share something like the big change. Did you add stories to your projects? Did you completely restructure your About Me? Did you make it look more expensive?
I mean, Diana is here. She's multitasking. She's like, I'm working on my portfolio website right now. So,
double dipping. We love it.
Yeah. There's no reason you can't do a little light coding and hang out with Mt Freelance at the same time.
Right. And then, hey, we should just take a moment. If you're a Mt Freelance member, a new one, or you joined in the past week, or even the Bob Smiths of the world, just put a little, maybe say member. Make a little comment, member. Let's see our members here who are already part of the Mt Freelance family. Sylvia.
New member Sylvia. Joanna.
Nice.
This is great.
Oh, nice. Ron.
Ron Lewis on here.
Ron.
Yeah, hello, Ron.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so many great members.
Yeah. So that's being a member. We'll get into it a little bit more, but we want to make it affordable. It's and we are offering a discount. But basically, it's spend a year working on your business. Andrew and I started talking about a little bit like a gym membership for your business. It's you make the commitment and then you start showing up, and all of a sudden you start seeing massive
results.
Muscles, right?
Massive freelance muscles.
Yeah. So right. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But did we have any other homework related? Are we gonna
did any pressing questions? Before we get into today's session, did any big questions come up from the homework? That you can either put in the chat, or if anyone wants to get on stage and ask a quick question, go for it. Oh, how to price projects. That is what today is all about. We're going to get into that.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Is there a way to revisit last session? That is great. If you
there
go to,
is,
yes.
It's on YouTube. And there may be another way, but if you go to Dribble's YouTube page, it's on there and fairly prominent.
Right.
So,
and graciously, comments are off. So if you have something terrible to say, you can't say it. Or nice.
So what's the best hourly rate to charge, Stephen? We're going to get into that today. What does level down or level up mean? is it always management or something else? Give us a little working a level down from where you are specifically.
Oh, right,
Okay,
right. Yeah.
so yeah, if you're a you know, I we kind of talk about, junior, kind of more entry level, mid level, and senior. And so if you're a junior, but the job is for someone who has to kind of be a senior experience level, you're probably not going to be able to bridge that gap. But if you're mid level, let's say you've been doing it for 5, 6, 7 years, and you've got a lot of experience, you could choose to maybe go down and do kind of junior or production level design work or that type of thing if you want the work, or if the rates are still what you want to do. Or you might be able to squeak up and get a little bit more responsibility, a little more trust, that type of thing, with and work on senior level work. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah, no, I also think brings to mind there's a lot of freelancers who call themselves creative directors, which is great, but creative direction is really about coming in and leading multiple teams. At least that's kind of in our world what it means. So if
and leading client meetings, helping influence like business decisions on a business client level.
So A, you have to be able to do that, but B, that's generally not what agencies and companies are looking for. Usually they have that person already full time, and what they need are people to do the work. So a lot of times when people are just like, I'm a creative director, unless they have really been doing it for decades, we say, maybe do that art direction work or writing work or design work, because not a lot of people are looking for someone they've never worked with before to suddenly come in and lead, half of their department through, a really hard client. So
yeah, and we typically say, on your portfolio site, you should list the thing that you're getting hired for the most, or the most likely to be hired for, or maybe the thing that's going to actually pay the most. But there's not really any advantage in saying you're a creative director unless you really have experience that you're a creative director. And same would go for art director and designer. They're not exactly the same, and it maybe depends on different agencies treat it certain ways. But an art director needs to be responsible for real conceptual thinking, and if you aren't quite there yet, you're probably a designer, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, some of the most talented people I know are designers, and they've just kind of stayed in that design realm, and you can make a fabulous living doing that. So hopefully that helps. But what do we want to so what's today's talk about, Andrew? Okay.
Oh yeah, see, today is all about money.
So we're going to focus on money. Honestly, I don't think there's a question that you could ask us that we would feel comfortable answering, even if it's about how we've charged. We're happy to share that, because a lot of times the money conversation has been kind of secret, or not shared openly amongst freelancers. And for me personally, my career really opened up when I had a friend who I was working with a guy on a project down in San Francisco. We were partnered up. We had really good chemistry working on this thing. We worked on it for a couple of weeks, and at the end of the project, I had the kind of courage to ask him like what he was charging, and he was charging $1,600 a day on a day rate, and I was charging $750 a day. And if you look at the work that was done, and
was he your boss?
He was not my boss.
Was he doing the same work you were doing?
We were doing the exact same thing. And what that made me realize is that there's a lot of opportunity and learning about this. So we're going to get into hourly rate. We're going to get into all the ways to charge, but I think it's like important to be honest, be open, and I think really be willing to admit that you might be doing it wrong.
Yeah.
That's actually a big thing. So like kind of come into this open. Um, we will really we're going to workshop some ways to figure out what you need to make too as well. So this should be super, super practical.
Yeah. And also, I think we should acknowledge that talking about money can be really hard. A lot of us, especially for anyone, but especially for creative people, most of us didn't get into design or creativity for the money. A lot of us, have other emotions tied to money. There may be some guilt or some shame or some, it's it's hard. It's complicated. Just putting that out there, but this is really a space to really be honest about it and talk about it. And, and for freelancers, it is like, it comes up every single job. It's our job to be thinking about money, to be thinking about rate, to be thinking about ways of charging, about ways to, sort of justify our cost to our clients. So this is big. So one of the things we asked at the very end of the homework and at the end of last week's session is, how much do you want to make in the next 12 months? And, I think write that number down somewhere, like put it, have it in front of you. And, it'll be interesting by the end of the session, if you have reevaluated that, maybe it's gone up. Maybe you're right there, but I think, we want to put some structure to that and just sort of think through how you're going to get there and, make sure it's practical and doable. And if not, build on some ways to make that happen. So,
and I think we talked about being, optimistic and realistic at the same time when you're coming up with that number. But I would say, in a 5-year period of time, I was able to increase what I made 300% in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that outside of, there are different industries, there's design, there's branding, there's web development, there's advertising. And one thing that Andrew and I have found is the closer that you are to the idea or just the conceptual work and the idea, the more money you're able to command, because that is kind of, the ideas are oftentimes the things that people are really willing to pay for.
Yeah. Thinking about almost like a Nike shoe, the person that designs it the shoe is probably going to make the most money. And then the company or person that makes the Super Bowl commercial about that shoe. But then it gets further and further afield when you start talking about, the social media about the shoe. The
person who's building the banner ads really had nothing to come up with the shoe. They're just, so something to think about, is don't, as a designer, or as a creative person, to really take business seriously in the sense that you're working for your clients and delivering value and results that aren't just like a beautiful image or great photography or a great UX layout. It's actually changing their business. So that's a little bit of an interesting way to look at it. But
hey, I want to give a little shout to Amelia and John and Amanda, and some of the folks that are sharing actually what they want to make with the whole group. So very bold, vulnerable, awesome. I think a big part of being freelance, and one of the things that we try to do with Mt Freelance is to provide some accountability. When you have a boss, when you have HR, you have these regular review sessions, you have people that are sort of making sure that that your work is on point. And, if you're not doing great work and maybe it's related to something outside, they're going to come sit you down and say, hey, what's going on? We don't have that as freelancers, so we need to find ways to create accountability, and we need to find ways that we have people that are sort of holding us to what we say. So even just to put out what you want to make in the next 12 months into the chat, that's awesome. It's putting it out in the world, and you're that much more likely to get there if you put it out there and say, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what I'm going to get, than if you just sort of see what the next 12 months takes you and where it leads you.
So I also want to bring up a couple of points. Andrew and I are really not that motivated by money. I mean, certainly having having a comfortable living is actually, is comfortable, and it really is nice. But we didn't get into this to make money. You certainly can, and I think people that do that can figure it out and they can actually accomplish that. But what we're talking about right now is not like a kind of a love of money. It's more just like, hey, this is a tool. This is part of business. This is part of life. And so, I just want to just so you guys know, like, this is not really what we think and dream about at night. It's other things in life that are more important. But this is also really critical because you don't get the benefits of freelance, of the flexibility, the ability to work on the stuff that you want to do, the ability to take time off. A lot of these other things, you don't get that unless you're really on it on this area with the finances. So
yeah. So we're going to start with a little bit of a pep talk. And this is, I want everyone to sort of say this out loud. Freelancers need to charge a lot of money. I think sometimes, maybe especially when we're starting, we have hesitancy. Sometimes that we think of what we need to make and we're like, I can't even say that amount of money out loud. But let's brainstorm some of the things that if we are freelance, we have to pay for ourselves that full-timers don't. I know we've got some people who are still working full-time. Maybe you're thinking about leaving your job. What are we going to lose out on? And I think it's helpful to start making this list. Like, we have to pay for our own healthcare. We have to buy our own computers. We have to buy our own office supplies. If we get sick, like, no one's paying us.
There's no sick days. There's no vacation days. There's all the tools that you need to use, your Adobe subscription, your social stuff, your portfolio, all these things you pay for out of your own pocket. There's no one bringing you snacks. There's no one, to charge a fancy dinner to. It's your, this is all based on what you can generate.
I pay $1,700 a month for health insurance for my family. And there's still copays. There's still things. I go to the drugstore and I'm like, what? How is this $100 for this prescription? Yeah. I'm already paying $1,700 for health insurance.
Yeah, and Laura says come to Canada, and that's actually we'd love to. They need to open up that border. But what I will say is that it's also really Andrew and I are going to be speaking today kind of from a United States kind of U.S. perspective. And so we're going to be talking about things in U.S. dollars. We're not maybe going to know some of the nuances that are in your state, your country, kind of all over, because we have people from all over the world. So hopefully we're going to try to keep the concepts as applicable as possible, but we'll be talking about things like that that will just be kind of like US based, but the ideas should be able to translate to wherever you are.
Yeah. But even in Canada, you got to pay for your own retirement. You don't get your vacations. No one's paying you to go on vacation or get sick. And I think we all know that, but I think one of the things when we were creating the Mt Freelance course is we realized that you also, I think this is where the next time you're in a negotiation with a client and you feel like maybe you're getting, you're getting pushed to a much lower rate than you want. Think about it from an employer standpoint. Let's think about a medium-sized company that is considering hiring a senior designer. In order to do that, they're going to spend. Let's start thinking about all the expenses they have.
So what's a senior designer going to make?
Let's say it's $100,000. Okay. Let's say they're going to pay a senior designer $100,000. How they're going to have to spend so much resources of HR and creative directors, like researching clients, interviewing them, right? They might have
researching candidates.
Yeah. Researching, get a short list, you get people in, all of a sudden, they got to interview with 8 people. So now you're using full-timers' time to find that person. If you work with a recruiting agency, this company, they're probably going to pay the recruiting company like 15% of the first year's wage. So if the recruiter is the one that hooks them up with a senior designer, that's 15 grand out of pocket just to hire this person. Then you got to enroll them in healthcare. If you're in the States, Canada, you're off the hook. You got to pay into their 401k. I mean, that could be, easily another 15k a year. You had a good year. You're going to give them a holiday bonus. The senior designer is going to expect a regular raise, usually 3 to 5%, maybe 7 or 9% if they've had a killer year. 2 weeks time paid off minimum. Maybe if you're in Canada, I don't know how many weeks of paid time off you get, probably more than us here in the States, but maybe they negotiate for 3 weeks of paid time off because they're a rock star. You got 2 weeks paid personal time, paid maternity, paid paternity, trainings, workshops, corporate parties, retreats, a computer, those design programs, people were mentioning that, office supplies, and then you got HR and IT and payroll and all these departments that you can't actually bill your clients for.
So what Andrew's saying, whoa.
Yeah, you got to get it. There we go.
As freelancers, we save our clients so much money.
So if you are one of the freelancers, a senior designer or a medium designer coming in to fill that role, and they don't have to hire a full-timer, we are collectively saving our clients so much time and money. And we owe it to ourselves to charge them for that and to charge accordingly, right? So, I mean, go back to this video on YouTube, we're at the, 31-minute mark. Like the next time that you are feeling like, gosh, I just can't charge a lot, go back to minute 25, watch this, just remember all these reasons why it's not just like, we've earned it. Like we have to, right? It's just the way of being freelance. We have to pay for all this stuff. We have to build in cushions. We have to be able to put into retirement and not just get by, right? We've got to pay all our taxes. None of that's coming out. So it's really important that we sort of get this Mt Freelance mentality of charging a lot. If we're going to, otherwise it's not going to be sustainable, and we're not going to be, we're not going to be happy. We're going to be struggling. We're going to be thinking about money. And that's when we don't do good work. And then all of a sudden we're looking for a full-time job. So don't do that. Yeah, let's charge a lot.
You convinced me.
All right, good.
Let's start charging.
Good.
So why don't we talk about there's kind of 4 different ways to charge. Can you guys read this? Well, maybe Madeline can put this in the chat real quick. Hourly, we'll talk about the day rate, project fee, and value pricing, which is kind of a next level thing. Oh, but there's a poll.
Oh,
here
poll.
we go.
We made a poll.
Let's see what we got here.
This is helpful for us to kind of understand, and we understand that some people probably have charged 2 or 3, maybe even you've got a couple current projects on different ones. But what is your most common way of charging? We want to get a sense of what. I'm
going to vote for us here.
You're going to go day rate. Okay.
Although that's me.
Oh, okay.
Project fee. Okay, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Hourly.
A lot of hourly.
So.
Great. Okay. So we're going to speak to all these different ways of charging and just go through some, kind of some best practices.
So I'm going to try to get rid of the poll. Oh, hold on here, Madeline.
Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. There.
So hourly.
This is what we're going to be talking about for a little bit. Hourly.
So hourly is not necessarily a bad way to charge. I think it's definitely the most simple. And there's some limitations to hourly. I mean, you're typically trading time for money. And that's actually what you are doing when it's hourly. And that is a limited resource, right? Your time is a limited resource. So there's a limit on how much you can make. As our very good friend Kathy Heppenstall says, freelance is an opportunity to trade energy for money. And where time is not necessarily the the measure of the money that you're going to make. And I think that's really a fabulous idea. But hourly is limiting in the sense that you're trading time for money.
So I think the most successful freelancers don't charge hourly, but we also understand that most clients love to pay hourly. There's a lot of reasons why. I think clients, it just makes them, they feel like they're getting their money's worth. They feel like they're not getting, kind of like tricked into paying a lot of money for, something that won't take long. It's just easy. It's easy for them to sort of check in on hours and know how much they're paying. So we acknowledge that, a lot of the work out there, that's just how your clients are going to want to pay you.
Right. And for them, it's predictable. It's tangible. Like there's no ghost, no smoke and mirrors. Essentially, they're only paying for work. And oftentimes it just feels fair to them because they don't really, it's easy for them to equate what you're doing with an hourly rate.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we've already got an issue. Gary sharing that the issue with hourly is defining the hours, because I'm not going to charge for a learning curve if I got stuck on something and need to do some of my own education. So that's we're going to push back on that a little bit, because I think one of the things that if you are charging hourly, that it's really important that you charge for all the time, right? So I think sometimes we get in this mentality of like, I'm only going to charge for the time that I'm sitting down designing that logo, or when I have the program open doing the actual design work. But if you are going to charge effectively for hourly, you have to charge for all the time you're working on that client. Like if you get an email from the client with some, hey, last minute request, like the time for you to read that reply, think through it, and reply to it, that's all time that you could not possibly bill to another client. Like if you're being asked to come in for meetings, like your travel time, you can't give that time to yourself or give that time to another client. Thinking time, researching time. If you have said that, hey, I understand how this program works, and then you actually don't, and you have to learn it, I wouldn't charge for that time. Mm-hmm. But if they say, hey, you need to work in this program, and you're like, I'm going to have to spend a little time learning it. You should be charging for that time, right? Any time that your client is taking up that you can't charge to another client, or just, go sit in the hammock and drink lemonade, that is time that you have to be charging. And I think that starts to get into how we bid hourly. If you're just bidding for how long you think the job is actually going to take, you're going to get burned every time. And you're going to get into this situation where the actual hours you've spent far exceed what you've bid. And then that's where you're having these uncomfortable conversations with clients. So I think when you bid hourly, you have to think through, like, you need to build in time for your own research and your own thinking and, finding inspiration. It's not just that time in front of your computer. And then how many clients have ever loved what you've done right off the bat and have never given feedback?
Right. Zero.
So knowing that you are going to have, and so that's, again, one of the things we talked about last week is communication. So really understanding, like, how many rounds of feedback are you agreeing to? The more you can understand how a client, understands the creative process and gives feedback. It's those times when you're working with like someone who hasn't done this before. Maybe they've started their own business and they want a new logo. Like that's when, like, if they've never worked with a designer to design a logo before, it's going to take a long time because they're not going to like it and they're not going to really be able to articulate what they want. And you've got to build all that time into your bid, or you're going to, go over on your hours.
So Amalia has a question here. Would you consider that learning curve time as onboarding, or how might you word this on an invoice? I would just say this is briefing. Like, just because the client has to tell you about the project, explain the background, show you the brand guides from somewhere else, all this stuff, just because you're not actually designing doesn't mean that's critical time for a project. So you need to bill for that. And I think, let's just say, for instance, you're going to do a UX design and it's just like one mobile frame or whatever. You think it's probably, you think in your head, well, I can get that done in 5 to 10 hours, right? it's much better to go in and say there will be 2 rounds. You're defining a couple of different rounds. You're not just saying, yeah, I can do that for 10 hours. You come back and say, all right, this is probably a 25-hour project. I will do this, this, and this. We'll have a review here. We'll make changes. And if we don't use all the hours, I won't charge for it. I think a big part of this with hourly is also just building trust, right? And so over time, you build trust with your client, and then you can actually go in and maybe change the way that you're billing after you've built up some trust in this way. And that's something. The other thing that let's see, I want to make sure we're not missing something here. The other thing that a lot of people think is that if they charge, $75 an hour, that's their rate with every client that they work with, and that is just not good practice. Clients, agencies charge different amounts for the same product to like different people all the time, right? So what you need to do is kind of have pricing that's variable to kind of what you know about the client. So whether it's an agency, whether it's if it's some big massive B2B, like some company that is not like a food cart down the street, you're going to charge differently than you would like, I don't know. I'm just Apple, right? Okay, that's a good B2B company we all know about. And so it's very important, So don't just create a rate sheet that you go off of. Actually, put some thought into it and start getting more comfortable. The other thing is, if someone wants to charge or wants to hire you and it's hourly, and you decide, hey, I'm gonna ask for more than I typically do, just ask. And if they want you to work, they're gonna say, oh, we can't do that. Can you come back down to this number? But just starting as a higher with a higher number helps helps position you as an expert that's going to come in, and then B, it gives you kind of starts the conversation at $100 an hour instead of $50 an hour. And then if you need to come down from 100, fine.
There's a question about, would you charge more for a business client than an agency? And there's a little bit of a nuance there. I mean, I think working directly for any tech client is probably where your rate is going to be the highest. Working for agencies that have really, car companies and really big brands, that's also going to be really high. So then you get down to sort of regional clients and smaller agencies. So, I mean, a little of it is using your network. And, when I did work for Apple, I'm not actually supposed to say that, or if any Apple lawyers are on here, I'm in trouble.
A fruit company.
But when I got the call, the first thing I did is I reached out to every other freelancer I know who had worked at Apple, and I just asked them, what did you get? What did you charge? I heard from 5 different people who, because we go back and they're part of my network, they were willing to share what they made. And then I had a really informed way to bill and to bid the project. So, I knew I wasn't leaving money on the table, but I also knew I wasn't going to charge something so astronomical that they were just going to laugh. Or, sometimes when you charge, if you're the most expensive freelancer, you're also setting yourself up to be the most effective, best freelancer. So that's also
right.
part of it.
You need to be... I guess all of this advice is based on the assumption that you're quite good at what you do, and that you're going to deliver and over deliver a lot of the things we hit on last week, giving 110%, potentially. Instead of doing 10 logo options, you're doing 12 or 15, and you're delivering them a day early. There's all these things that we're kind of talking about with money really only work if you're really delivering. This also part of this with hourly is you also need to track your hours religiously. I I could even see putting, a little bit of administrative invoicing time on the invoice as well. You could just say administrative and add an hour, right? For all of the tracking, maybe all the, uploading a file, that's time, right? If you're uploading a big file, if you're, so again, you don't want to make this unvaluable for your client, but just know that all of these things are work.
And then one last thing to touch on with hourly is when you, I think in order, so much of it is about all of freelance is building trust. So check in with your client regularly, especially if it's a bigger project that's 50 hours or 100. So being proactive about checking in and saying, hey, here's where I'm at. You may think you're at the halfway point, but your client may not understand that. So if you're, hey, we've got I bet 100 hours. Just want to let you know, I think we're in a good place. I'm at 50 so far. Like that's, doing that a couple times throughout, rather, because what you want to avoid, and we've all done this, is you get to 80 hours and all of a sudden, you have what you think is going to be the last presentation with a couple finesses, and someone's husband saw the work and has these ideas, and all of a sudden you're back to, you're like back to ground zero, and then that's the uncomfortable conversations. Oh, we had no idea you'd already put 80 hours in, because we're not designers. We have no idea how long any of this takes. So being really upfront with them and checking in regularly is going to ensure that you're not, kind of getting to this litigious place at the end of the job where you're at hours, but your client's not happy because they don't have finished deliverables yet.
The other thing with hourly is if you're being hired by the hour, they are not buying your complete day. This is actually really important because if somebody hires me for 20 hours a week, I'm probably going to have a few deadlines. I'm going to have a few check-ins or that type of thing. But it's up to me when I'm going to do those 20 hours, unless it's being specified within the project. But somebody doesn't get access to you, 8 hours a day, like they are paying you for a full day. That actually creates a great moment if you want to go in and say, hey, it seems like I kind of need to be available on this project on a much more kind of ongoing basis. Why don't we move this hourly rate over to a day rate? And at that point, let's say you're charging $100 an hour. You say, okay, I'll be available for you more than 8 hours a day. I mean, sometimes it goes into that, but just say I'm $800 a day now, and I'll stay on this project for the next 2 weeks. So that guarantees you that you would make $800 a day times the 5 days. Maybe if you work the weekend, you're charging for a day on the weekend.
6 days.
6, 7. And then, that's a way to kind of take your hourly rate and actually use it to kind of come to a more advantageous spot with a day rate.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Aaron. I think, we can get in these sticky situations with our clients, and using them as a rather than saying, hey, this isn't working, saying, hey, I'm noticing that you want more time. So let's, this is a great opportunity to pivot and sort of evolve the way you're charging, so that, because I think, especially when you build trust with your clients, and, we talked about last week, you want to be getting the clients to hire you again and again. So what you want to do with hourly clients is try to evolve them to a day rate or to a project fee, so that you're in a place where, again, you're trading energy instead of time for money. So let's talk a little bit about Aaron's favorite, the day rate.
So we kind of joke about it being freelance nirvana, but a day rate means that you are the client essentially owns your time for the whole day, and it could. I mean, I've had days turn into 18-hour days, right? I mean, that happens occasionally as you're getting ready for a presentation. But when you're charging by the day, you're not tracking the hours, and you're available. And so Gary's like, "What is a day?" I mean, I wouldn't work too many 18-hour days in a row. But occasionally, it also could mean that you're waiting on client feedback and you're sitting around and it's really only a 4-hour day, you're charging for the day. So there's some, one of the advantages kind of going back to hourly is you can actually kind of fit in numerous projects. So if you have a few small projects, you can kind of piece them together to create, kind of a busy week with like lots of hours to bill. Day rate's a lot harder to do that because when you are on a day rate, you're available to your client through almost really at all times, right?
So yeah, and this is again where you're going to, if you're able to negotiate a day rate, hopefully you're already, if it's a client you haven't worked with before, you start to talk to your network. What is it like to work at this agency or company? And if you you're gonna start to hear, oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's I've had clients in Silicon Valley where everyone works or lives in San Francisco, so meetings end by 4:30 because everyone's trying to get in their car to see their kids before like 2 hours of traffic. But I also have heard from people, an agency has reached out and they're like, it is hard here. We are working 16 hours a day. They're ordering in lunch. They're ordering in dinner. And, don't worry about a per diem because you won't have time to spend it. So, again, getting a sense. So in that case, some people base their day rate on an 8-hour day, some on a 10, some on a 12. There's not like a hard and fast rule. But again, part of it is using your network, figuring out, or if it's a recurring client, you'll know, oh my God, this is a dream. They're going to pay me a day rate, and I'm going to have, a manageable day. So, you might charge it a certain day rate for that client versus a client where, it's every time I come in, they if I get an email at 10 p.m., they're expecting to see those changes in the morning. That's a different situation, and you have to charge accordingly. And it's important to get that sense too, because like if you're someone who, has kids that you need to pick up or has some, medical appointments throughout the week, therapy appointments, whatnot, you have to communicate all that stuff beforehand, because again, when a client is hiring you for a day rate, they're really expecting you to be fully available from 9 to 5, with time to work in the evening. So, again, so much of this is having that conversation with other people in your network to understand what it's actually like to work there, but then also having honest conversations with HR, and then even with, like when you start with your creative director, hey, just get it in a sense, just so I can tell my family, like, what are the days going to be like here for the next couple of days? So you're asking these questions at the start of a job versus like finding out a weekend, oh my gosh, I had no idea that, like, I thought I was going to make all this money because I got this day rate, but I'm working 18 hours a day and I'm it's so hard.
Right. And the reason I like it personally is I like to work real hard for, kind of shorter periods of time and then take time off. That's kind of clean, complete time off. Mm-hmm. It's also, there is, I think typically agencies and maybe advertising agencies actually do this. But I think my first day rate was $400 a day, and that was probably 12 years ago. And so I also think that agencies in that case maybe kind of take advantage of day rate in a sense that if that's like where you start, and that's kind of like a big just kind of a good stepping off point, you're going to work a lot for that, for a kind of a smaller amount of money. So anyhow, that's something that can be evolved.
But where day rate really works is if you've got a day rate of, say, $1,000 and someone comes to you and says, hey, we want to hire you for 20 days. Right there, all of a sudden, you do the math. All right, I'm going to make 20 grand this month. And that's, that means that the month after I can take it easy a little bit. Or what often happens is, if you're really doing great work, all of a sudden, the job extends, or they say, hey, you did a great job on this. What about this? And so that's where, with day rate, I think is where freelancers can really make some great money.
Right. So, we won't spend a lot of time on this, but there is the opportunity on a day rate to do this, and it's called double dipping, and it's really a pro level move. I've only successfully done it a few times in my career. At one point, I had a large agency in Chicago had hired me and a writing partner on a very nice day rate, and then we got a call from the same agency in Toronto, and they called and they also wanted to hire us, and we agreed to try to do it. Um, and so that was a, 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 a very nice amount of money coming in every day, but it was probably the hardest 2 weeks of work in my entire life. A lot of juggling, navigating meetings, even some travel. Uh, Very tricky to do. I wouldn't recommend doing it if you weren't paired up with your partner, with a partner kind of on both projects. But some people do it, expect to work 8 hours a day times two, and how many days in a row can you actually sustain that? For me, and this was probably, this is a little while ago, I would say 2 weeks was my max then. I honestly don't know if I could even do it more than a week at this point. So and I really don't enjoy doing it, but just know that it is possible. And I think that's probably more in advertising, where you're being paid for ideas and conceptual thinking, and that level of work versus like design work. I don't think you could ever do it and be cranking out like twice the amount of design you would need on a day rate. So yeah, so we'll keep moving. The chat is great. We try to kind of weave things in as we see questions and things that fit. But
we'll have some Q&A time.
Yeah,
sure.
We're gonna definitely do Q&A. We're gonna have some people up on stage to ask questions. We're gonna do. We're actually gonna help you figure out what it's going to take for you to hit that number that you wrote down earlier of what your ideal annual salary would be. We're going to help walk through that. But next, we're going to move on to the third way of charging.
Project fee. And it looked from the poll like this is maybe the most common way. I'm a huge fan of project fees. 48%. But I think, as most of you know, I mean, a project fee, when you look back on it, depending on how it went, you could make insane money, if you're able to finish the project quickly and satisfy your client, or you could make, pennies on the dollar and a terrible rate if, you thought it was going to be easier than, or all of a sudden, your client, your client doesn't know what they want. And there's like rounds and rounds of feedback. You weren't super clear on the deliverables. So I think a project fee really works when you work fast, when you are on the same page about deliverables, timeline, review cadence, rounds of feedback with your client, and when you have a good working relationship with your client. Like, generally speaking, I don't do well on a project fee the first time I work with a client, but when I start to understand like how that client works, is when I can actually bid a project fee effectively, so that I'm actually making more than I would on an hourly or, maybe even a day rate. And then also, I think when your client has a good reason to finish the project on time, that's one of those green flags. Like, if there's like, hey, we need this out the door by this date, that's a great sign that this isn't going to drag out forever. If anyone has ever worked on a video game, generally speaking, video game launches like, the game was going to be done in March. Good news, it's not out until October, which is terrible news for a freelancer unless you're going to negotiate more time, because it just means it's going to go on and on and on. So I think, last week we did a great exercise. Aaron asked everyone to put some red flags in the chat. Feel free to add some for project fees. But, we've said it a few times. I think project fees are terrible when you have a client that doesn't understand the creative process. When the review process is messy, when there's scope creep. That's why being super clear, having deliverables in writing that you've agreed to and you've talked over, when they say, oh, actually, hey, we needed this, hey, we needed that. If you don't put your foot down and start, nope, that's out of scope, we're going to have to negotiate more for that, that's when, the project fee, so your hourly, starts to go down and down and down. Disorganized clients, clients who don't know what they want, clients are too busy. If you ever say, hey, just so you know, I'm on a lot of projects, so I'm not going to always be able to get back to you, that's a bad sign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even like a lot of times we are dependent on getting content and information from the client to even do the job right. So if you're redesigning a website and they owe you a bunch of copy and a bunch of bios and a bunch of photography, you can't get the job done until you get that from them. So project fees require, or project-based projects require double the amount of communication up front as pretty much any other way, right? So that's the key, and Andrew is fabulous at communicating, so that's why he kind of tends to go with a project fee.
Ooh, I'm going to go back and after this workshop is done and look at the 6 types of clients you should never ever work for. I wrote down owners of companies tend to be really hard to work with. Partners of companies, nonprofit executive directors. I love nonprofits, but sometimes I've found that, especially when you're working at someone at that high level, they want the moon and they sometimes know exactly what they want, but they're not a marketing person. They're not a creative person necessarily. So they're not able to sort of articulate it and help you get to the finish line. And that's where things get frustrating.
So one thing I see on here, and I can't even really believe this is a thing, and I know it is clients that ask for a free design test, where they want you to show you. I don't, I mean, I think part of the reason that maybe they do that is because some people, I've actually talked to some recruiters, one yesterday. It's pretty common for people to be untruthful about what they've done and what their talents are in their portfolio. And so because that's been happening, people are asking for these tests or sample projects. Man, I would just not, I would not do that. But also be totally honest in your portfolio. Don't put any work in there that you didn't do. Make sure if you worked with other people on it that you properly credit them the way you would want to be credited on their website. So I just kind of went on a little tangent based off of, can't remember who made that comment.
Yeah, but don't do design tests.
Yeah, that was from Mel. So let's not do that. But back on track. Sorry.
No, that's great. Yeah, I think a couple things that, are green signs, are like a clear brief. Like if you're doing a project fee and you don't have a clear written brief from your client, like that's going to be trouble. Again, the list of deliverables, clear definition on team, roles, responsibilities, timelines. I mean, when you're doing a project fee, you're almost like an agency of one. So you want to make sure that you have all this stuff figured out. And then also a producer, project manager, or account person on their side. Again, that's where you don't want to be working directly with like the partner or owner of a company. That's just not their skill is being entrepreneurial. It's not managing a designer. And then also avoid anyone who uses the term flat fee, because flat fee is code for this is the most money you will ever get from me, and I am going to be really difficult. Maybe someone put flat fee in there, but a project fee technically is the same thing as a flat fee. The difference being with a project fee, it's not a jail sentence, right? If you, again, back to that trust and that communication, if a project is just wildly going out of scope, or, you just, it's clearly going to be hours and hours more than either of you expected, have that conversation. Say, hey, look, here's where things are at. Like, there's no way I can finish this based on, how disorganized your team is, or the, all of a sudden the brief has completely changed and I've already spent half my time. You have that conversation, say, look, we need to refigure this out. Or else, again, it's always having this communication. But I love project fees because, I feel like ethically, if you're charging hourly, you need to be charging for the hours that you're actually working. But with a project fee, it may be based on an hourly, but if I do it in half the time,
you're estimating some time against it. But
Yeah, but if I finish it in half the time, I'm charging the full project fee because we've agreed that that is the fee for the project. And I think again, whereas a day rate, you're kind of committing to that agency or company for that amount of time. With a project fee, again, you can juggle. And I think again, just to reiterate Aaron's point with hourly and project fee, unless they have really stated it, they don't get access to you all the time. They can't suddenly start, hey, we've got a meeting in 2 hours, can you, like once or twice, fine. But if that starts to become a pattern, that's where you have to say, hey, whoa, this is like a day rate situation, or we need to renegotiate because, you weren't clear that you wanted this kind of access to me. And then we also wanted to touch on value pricing, which is kind of
I value pricing is a really interesting thing, and it's certainly a lot of there's a lot of experts on it. Probably know more than I do, but I will say, value pricing is based on you actually creating a true partnership with your client, and a partnership meaning you're actually taking some risk, betting on the success of this project. And if you, so an example of that might be like, there's a sock company online, and they make the socks. They want to create an e-commerce website, but maybe they don't have a lot of budget, but you can see the potential in bringing their products online. Value pricing could be like, listen, I'll partner with you. Say this is a $25,000 website, and you guys already have all the photography done or whatever. I'm just making up numbers. You say, I realize that there's a budget challenge for you guys, but if we, I will do this for $10,000, and I will, get 5% of revenue that comes through the e-commerce store for the next 2 years. And so not only will I build it for less, I will actually maintain it and be there with you to help grow the business over the next 5 years or what up 5 years, 2 years, whatever, 18 months. You can kind of create that term, and then they're saving money. They're essentially paying for the performance of the work that you did. You're investing more time and money into it. You're taking some risk, but on the back end, 5% of the revenue that comes through the e-commerce store could be, let's just say it's $50,000. So now all of a sudden, instead of a project that really would have cost, or you typically would have made 25,000, you're actually doubled that, right? There's all sorts of ways you can get creative on it. I've had an agency call me and say, "Hey, we're doing a pitch." So we would pitch a brand like I think this one actually was Uggs, the
boots,
the furry boots, and those shoes. So I worked on Uggs. We pitched it. They asked me to work at a rate that was lower than I typically work at. And sometimes they do that on pitches because they don't have the business yet. It's just coming out of the agency's pocket, right? They haven't won the account. They don't have that revenue coming in yet. So a lot of times, if I think there's a good chance that I will say, yes, I'll work for less, but then I will say, if you, let's say it's a 10-day project. Let's just, for round numbers, say it was $1,000 for 10 days. But I say, if you win the pitch, I will, you need to pay me for 5 more days after that I don't work. So, I'm taking some risk. I'm going less than what I typically would charge, to work on it. But I also that also helps me stay invested, and they like that. They like to know that I'm actually invested in the outcome of this, not just producing, the work every day, right? Um, so there's all sorts of ways that you can build in bonuses, partnerships, and value pricing. I mean, the value pricing is actually, we're just kind of scratching the surface. We are going to get to some other tactics that will are a little bit more with negotiating um, later on, or we'll kind of dip back into some value pricing thinking. But that would be, especially if you're running an agency, or if you are kind of what I do with math department, which is my portfolio handle. Is if I get in a bigger project, I will actually go and hire other people. I'll typically pay them hourly or day rate, but then when I take the proposal for approval, I'm actually marking up the hours. So if I have a designer that's $100 an hour, I charge the client $150 an hour. It's essentially a markup, and it's to cover my time managing them, approving work, looking through all that type of stuff, right? So it's possible, even just for one person, to kind of create a studio or agency model that where you're bringing in all these other freelancers. This chat is full of people that could work on projects with you, right? So again, I'm kind of straying off the value pricing thing. We can get into that a little bit more if there's more questions, but and actually I will do a little plug for Dribble. They're fabulous. But Chris Dew is coming up in I think later this month, or Madeline's probably going to tell us. Chris Dew is great. We're friends with Chris, and he is a master on value pricing, and I'm sure he'll cover that. It's August 11th. I don't believe that one is free, but I would pay money for it if this is a subject. I mean, he's going to get into all sorts of stuff, but he is one of the best. So keep that in mind moving forward. But so more on value pricing, and he's also very good with negotiating. So that's coming up on August 11th from Dribble. Andrew, so we're going to keep the train moving here.
Oh man, it's the $20 million question. How much to charge? So, one of the things, we kind of touched on earlier that, the closer you are to the idea, the more that you can charge. That's why, creative directors tend to make more than art directors, who, sometimes can make more than designers. It's why strategists, make a lot of money. It's why the director, makes, or the photographer makes a lot of money. But I think one of the things, there's a couple ways at this. But one of the exercises that some of you may have done, but a lot of us don't do or don't do regularly, is just calculating how much you actually need to make. Some people call it your nut, but if you've never done the exercise, create, open a spreadsheet and start to do all your expenses. It's kind of easiest to do it monthly because so many things are charged monthly. But start with your rent. Mortgage, what are all your bills? You've got trash, you've got, water, you've got electricity, you might have gas. If you're not in Canada, what is your healthcare, kind of out of pocket, food and drink, entertainment. So, it's really helpful to open up, get a couple credit card receipts, open up your bank account and start to figure out what are you actually, how much money are you spending every month? What are all your expenses? All your subscriptions. Then you also, have to figure out retirement contributions. If you're going to do this,
your annual Mt Freelance membership,
yes, and as well as your gym membership. So it's, these things change. This is also a great exercise. If you see some things that you're paying for, that, you're going through your credit cards, see some things, yes, taxes, so that becomes, here in the US, whatever all your expenses are, you're going to have to add another 35%, to cover your taxes, So knowing kind of what you have to make every month, including retirement and vacation and having fun and taxes, is kind of crucial. So if you haven't done that, like take the time in the next couple of days to do that exercise.
Yeah, do that.
Do that.
So we are going to do a little bit of an exercise. So in terms of what to charge, there's really two different ways of looking at it. One is what do you need? And that's what Andrew is kind of outlining here. The other is like, well, what is your value? Like, what are you worth on the open market per se, right? So, and hopefully, what you're worth and what you can get out on the open market is more than what you need. I mean, that's obviously, and that's a very simple way of looking at it, but that's the game, right?
That's when you get a hot tub.
Right. That's when you exactly.
Or your version of a hot tub, whatever your version of a hot tub is.
But whether it's so I guess what we're gonna do. So Madeline, there is a PDF that is. We're not calling it homework this time. We're calling it just a recap of today. So there's some notes. Some of our slides are going to be in there, and there is a chart on page 4 that looks like this. Can you guys see this? So this is a kind of, I'm going to call it a tool, but it's essentially a way that we're going to calculate what you want to make, what other things you're going to need to keep in mind. This is a real rough, high-level tool, but it will give you an idea of either the day rate or the hourly rate that you would need to charge over the course of a year to hit that number that you wrote down earlier. So the link is in the chat. So if you go chat public, you're going to see something from Madeline with a team dribble in pink. It's the Mt Freelance dribble recap. Be great if you had it open to page 4, because that will be helpful. And so what we're going to do, though, is instead of just doing it the way I've done it in the past, or for myself, is I'm going to help someone go through and we're going to fill out your tool with you, and hopefully that will help explain how to use it. So I would love if you'd like to volunteer and are willing to be a little bit transparent and honest about your some of your financial plans for the next year. We'll just kind of estimate some things, but this could be great. We'd like to have you on stage, and we can ask a few additional questions and help you think through some of these numbers. Andrew's got his calculator fired up here because we're going to do a little math. But we'll kind of walk everyone through this. So grab the PDF, go to page 4, and you could just do this on your screen while you're watching, or you could also just do it later, because you'll see how to do this. But Madeline, do we have someone to bring on stage?
Oh, you might be muted, Madeline.
Oh, no, we are.
Oh, no, we are. Sorry.
Tech issues again. We've got people in the chat saying that they're up for coming on stage. What you need to do is raise your hand in the Q&A panel of the chat. You'll see a raise hand emoji that will signify, oh, we've got Amelia. She just raised her hand, so I'll bring her into the green room.
Okay. Oh, we're backwards now. This is gonna be good. Okay. Hello. Can you introduce yourself and tell us where you're from?
Yeah, so my name is Amelia, and I currently live in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I'm actually going to be moving to New York City in 17 days. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Great time to figure out your annual freelance income. Let's see.
Oh,
Now
yeah.
all over the place. Okay. So we're going to fill this out. I'm going to ask you some questions. And because you're moving to New York, will you be paying taxes in Canada or in the United States?
In Canada.
Okay. So, but let's do this in, well, we could do it in Canadian dollars. Actually, let's do it in US because I feel like that'll make sure that we're doing this right. What do you want your annual take-home income to be? What's your goal?
Well, yeah, originally I said 75K Canadian. So I don't know if we just want to use that number in US as well. That's fine.
Is it about Canadian is like $1.20 to $1? Is that about what it is?
About that, yeah.
So, let's just say 80,000 US. Yeah, can we say that?
Sure.
Is that I just gave you a raise?
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So then, so I'm gonna write that in here, and then what is what's your tax rate roughly in Canada? So I'm gonna just show where we are on the screen. What's your tax rate? Here for freelancers, it's between 30 and 35% typically. So,
yeah, I think it's around that 30% mark.
Okay. So we're going to get 30% of $80,000 because 80,000 is what we want to take home. So 30% is actually $24,000. So we're going to put that into estimated taxes. And then on a, so the other thing the next thing that we're going to figure out is annual business expenses. And this would just be kind of like what you need to pay. This is your business. This isn't you and your expenses. This is your business's expenses that can essentially be written off, right? But it's like your Adobe subscription, your Getty subscription, your Mt Freelance subscription, which I'm sure you're probably going to get. I'm joking. Healthcare. There's all the things that are tied to that. We could just make an estimate, or if you could tell us like monthly. What do you think that is?
An estimate would probably be better because I haven't actually
that's fine.
into those prices accurately. Right. But I know with the subscriptions and everything else, I'd say it's around probably close to the $500 mark a month, to be honest.
That makes sense. And does that include healthcare?
No.
Okay, so let's keep that out of it for now, just because. So that $500 a month is $6,000 more dollars. Okay. So what I'm going to show you guys here is this is your take-home annual income, 80,000. Estimated taxes, 24,000. Business expenses, 6,000. So the total that you're going to need to bill for over the course of a year is $110,000. Does that seem intimidating? Does that seem possible? Okay, so that's the shift in mindset that needs to happen and get away from this. We're charging $50 an hour. I don't really know the plan, whatever. This is you taking charge of your business. So knowing that number is actually, that is the key. That is, once you have that, you can start filtering a lot of decisions through that and just know, like, no, I'm not going to do that project for nothing. No, or I am because it's a nonprofit I care about, but I'm going to make sure I charge the tech company I'm working for, more. I'm going to get more out of that so I can volunteer over here, right? Like that. This is why, Andrew and I kind of talk about the numbers. The money is not really, it's not a passion. It's not driving us. We're not trying to get rich. I think it's more of the game of saying like, okay, if I can get these right. So, okay. Amy's saying, isn't the math wrong if you're billing $110,000 30%, it would actually, so this is just estimate, by the way, but we're including, her take home is 80,000 is what we're shooting for. So that's where the 30% comes from. And then again, all of this is to round up. We don't want to be real conservative on these numbers. We actually want to be earning more than what we need. Because if we earn less than what we need, we get a bunch of stress and all that other kind of stuff. So, all right, Amelie, right? Am I saying that right? Yeah,
Amelia.
Amelia, I'm sorry. Amelia. Okay. So the average working, there's 260 days is a year is what the average person works. And for me, I like to work less than that. Personally, I like to take some time off. I like to do some vacation. So if you were kind of based off 260 being the average, and that's like kind of what a full-time person does, how many days a year would be ideal for you to work?
In a like perfect world, I'd love to be able to take even 5 days off every month. So
that would be, so if
like
you worked 20 days a month, and you took 5 days off, not counting the weekends. Is that what you mean? In addition to the weekends? Yeah. So basically a week off. Yeah. That's at about 75%. So that would be 15 times 12 is what?
15 times 12.
180 days. So you're working roughly 80 days less a year than the average person. 180 days. That's great, though, because you don't want to work more days. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 110,000. Sorry, I'm trying to get this right. The 110,000, which is your total billing goal, and we're going to divide it by the number of days that you want to work. So that's 180 days. That means that your day rate, if you were to charge a day rate, should be $611 a day. That's what your day rate would need to be to hit that. Okay. And then if we divide that $611 by 8 hours, so that's going to give you your hourly rate. We have it at $76 an hour. So then the whole point of this is to show how over time this becomes actually quite possible, right? So then the question is, how do I charge $76 an hour? Is that higher or lower than what you typically charge now?
It's $1 higher than what I typically charge. So I charge $75 an hour right now.
Perfect. So I would have never planned that. That's amazing. But what that tells me is that you can absolutely do this. This is very achievable for you because you're not charging way under or way above this, right? If you were charging way under this, it would be difficult. But and also you're getting a week off every month if you do this. So what your goal is to start building your business around making intentional choices to build the business around this model or this plan. So when we get out of the chat, I'll hold this up so everyone can see it on the biggest screen, just so it'll be a little easier. And then you can take a screenshot of it. Again, these are all estimates. And essentially, one of the other things in here is that $6,000 is actually going to be a write-off that's going to lower your taxes as well. So, but the whole point of it is not to make it go. It's to be generous because you want to hit the goal. You don't want to fall short of it, because if you fall short, then something's not adding up, and you're introducing a lot of stress and missing out on things inside of your plan. So thank you so much for volunteering. That's awesome to meet you. Awesome to does anyone have any questions about that? Do we think we should do another one? Here, I'm going to hold this up so everyone can kind of see it big. Take a screenshot if you want, because it kind of coincides with what we did here. So, okay, Denisa says, it sounds so simple, but I don't understand how to include time spent on my marketing, admin, anything that's not client work within the day rate. So I think what's important to say is this tool, on these days that you're not, when we're talking working days, we're talking billing days, right? So those are days that you're billing your full rate, or whatever this rate is, right? But there's going to be days in between where you're going to have to do things that we talked about last lesson. That's all about networking, about getting, following up with people, and a lot of those things, the business are not billable. They're just things that you have to do to keep your business going. So I just talked a lot.
You did.
I'm gonna take a breather.
Yeah, well, and one of the advantages to day rate, of course, is that you can build that time in. But I think one thing I wanted to mention is, just $75.76. One of the things that that we have shared with our members and talked about a lot is like the need to give yourself a raise regularly. Every full-timer is getting an annual review, and they're having that conversation. Maybe it was a terrible year, they don't get a raise, but most people are going to get a raise from time to, kind of every year. So we need to do that as freelancers. And, to tell a client that you are going from $75 to $90 is, that may be too much. That a client may just say, hey, we can't make that jump. But to go from 75 to 80, that's more palatable. And no client in the world is going to begrudge you if you say, you know what, I'm going from 75 to 77. Some freelancers tend to charge these really even numbers, but if you can just incrementally go up regularly, once a year, you just give yourself maybe that 3% raise. They're going to like, what? That's, in fact, some clients may say, why don't you just round up? Why do 77 when you just make it 80? Like, you're doing great work. So definitely build that in, even if you haven't, sort of done, giving yourself a raise in a while, put it on your calendar, make it a reoccurring once a year. Maybe it's tomorrow. You sit down and you say, hey, I've been charging the same rate for 5 years. I've got great clients. They love the work I'm doing. I'm going to give myself a raise. And as I start getting new projects, I'm just going to say, hey, FYI, I've raised my rate a little bit, and then come back and do it every year.
And we're getting some comments in here, Steph saying, what about going from 60 to 70? I just want to remind you, this is your business. You can do whatever you want. So try it out, go from 60 to $95 an hour. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from trying. I do just kind of want to point out that, if you are working with like your main primary client and they represent 80% of your billing and that type of thing, you want to be real thoughtful with it. But if somebody comes to you with a new project and you're not exactly 100% sure it's a good fit, or you're not sure you want to work on it, or it's kind of boring, just throw out a big number. And if they say no, then you move on. That's the glory of keeping the pipeline of work coming. And so, don't feel like you have to just look at things one way. This is just an illustration, a tool to help do that. But
yeah, I mean, in some ways, this is it's a not a dangerous but a funny thing to teach, because really, I mean, Aaron and I are still experimenting. We've done this for 30 years. I still,
combined.
Said,
I just want to make sure
combined.
We didn't start in the 70s.
Not each, yeah. 30 combined, but I am still trying stuff. Someone asked, how do you come up with a project fee? This is going to sound like I'm not an expert at all, but sometimes I will literally think about a project, close my eyes, and come up with a number. And it's not arbitrary. That is just me leaning on my years of doing these projects, and just sort of getting a sense, it's almost like a little meditation based on, knowing how, like, what the ask is, what this client, it's always with a client I've worked with before, but even sometimes who the individual team members are. So I even have clients, like I work a lot with design agencies, and I have clients that I will charge differently based on who the creative director is, because I know some projects are going to go really smooth and some projects are going to be a little more time consuming. There's going to be more like, kind of internal hand wringing. So, there's not a science to any of this. There is, but we're just trying to, again, share these best practices, and, as Aaron is doing, giving you the encouragement to, like, in funny ways, it's harder to give yourself a raise with an established client who's used to paying a certain amount than with a new client who has no idea where your old raise was, right? Or your old rate was. And then the great thing about, suddenly getting a new high rate with a new client is all of a sudden, for all new clients, that can be your rate, right? And there will always be negotiation, but, you get it once, and all of a sudden, like the next new client, you say, well, you can truthfully say, I'm currently charging clients X amount. And you even have that, sort of confidence. So, hey, I know should we do a little quick Q&A before we take a break?
Yeah.
I know there's been so many questions, and I wish we could answer every single one of them. But maybe we go, here we go. Okay.
I do my work at a slower pace, so I'm hesitant to work hourly. What is your suggestion at fixed prices, especially on part-time or full-time opportunity? So this is a good question, Lauren. And, I have a good friend of mine who is a fabulous writer, but he kind of writes a little slow. Andrew, on the other hand, he's speedy.
A lot of grammatical mistakes, but fast.
I would say, number one, is keep working at it, because the faster you work, obviously, the more money you can make on some level. So I think that should be kind of a long-term goal, to get a little more efficient with how you work. Fixed prices are going to be pretty limiting if you're looking to make money. If this is like a side gig and you're like, hey, I can do your logo for $500, but it's going to take me a couple of weeks to get the round one done or whatever, I think that's fine. But that's kind of like almost like a side gig. Like we really talk about freelance as a like, this is your career, this is your business. And in that case, I think I know it's a little bit tricky, because I think, like, things move pretty quick. So I think you're going to be able to command probably higher prices if you can start to work a little quicker. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing is, especially if you have people coming to you, or clients who love working with you, then, is to be really upfront about, if it's hourly, just to be really upfront about, like, kind of your cadence. Hey, for this amount of time, you are going to get this many illustrations or this many logos, and then we're going to have, built-in feedback time. But again, kind of communicating that. Another thought potentially would be something we haven't really touched on, but is, suggesting a retainer, so that you are sort of available to your clients for, maybe 10 hours a week, or, 30 hours a month. And, that also may be a way, so that you're not so focused on, the hourly, but, they're giving you a set amount of time, or money. And then, you're sort of, the nice thing about a retainer is, if they don't use all the hours, you still get your retainer. And then if you, usually how retainers are negotiated is, if you go over that time, then you get extra based on, the hours you go over. But it's really, again, when we have clients that are, that want to keep us project fee or hourly, but, are very demanding, that's another solution where we can sort of say, hey, look, if I can block out this much time, and even potentially, like, these parts of these days, but I need a monthly retainer, so that, I know I have this set amount of income, so I'm not just constantly, like, going from work to no work, and that the part of freelance that can be really hairy.
So Tiffany wrote in the chat, I'm so excited to charge more. And that's what we're hoping to inspire, is some confidence and some understanding on the realities of what it's going to take to put together a business that can sustain your life. Really, that's it. We all love the creative work we do, and part of what Mt Freelance is all about is helping you get over some of the fear and some of the hurdles of running the business part of it. So I love to see that.
Yeah, Madeline, hook us up with maybe two more money-related questions before we take a break here. Some of the ones that you guys are hopefully voting up in the Q&A, the ones that people really are.
Man, can I take this one?
Yes.
Okay. We have good friend Kathy Heppenstall, who talks about the idea of writer's block being ludicrous and being a made up thing that doesn't actually exist. And we're creating a barrier. I actually feel the same way about imposter syndrome. You get confidence by being good at what you do and having an idea of if you are good at this, right? And if you aren't good at it, you may have something that feels like imposter syndrome. But if you're talented, Gabo is a designer or let's say an account person or a strategist or a UX designer or photographer, you need to kind of delete the idea of imposter syndrome even from your vocabulary or brain. Why in the world are we believing this? And it's something that social media has kind of gotten going. So to me, it's be objective, be honest with yourself. If you can be honest with yourself, you will be able to charge more. Or if you are being honest with yourself and you're just I shouldn't be charging more because I'm really not that good. And this has nothing to do with you, Gabo. It's more just an idea of hey, get better at your craft. Keep working at it. Keep taking classes through Dribble. Keep learning, right? And getting better and better. But let's just all agree to just get rid of the idea of imposter syndrome and just toss it.
Yeah, I want to just share two things. I mean, one is, if you're feeling that and it's not going away, go back to what you love about design or whatever your field is and give yourself a personal project or carve out, half an hour. Every morning you're going to get up for half an hour and you're going to do the part of, your design that made you fall in love with design in the first place, or that you're really, really good at. So if you're starting every day making something that you love, that's going to give you some confidence to go into the rest of the day. The other thing is if you have, if you are a designer and you are getting design work and clients are hiring you for design, right off the bat, you are a designer that clients want to hire freelance. And, I think one of the reasons why we went through that reminder of, what are all the things that as freelancers we have to pay for and how are we saving clients money, sort of start to divorce some of that. There's talent and there's feeling about your design work, and then there's having to pay your mortgage and or your rent and being able to sustain yourself. We live in a capitalist society, and I think it's sort of taught us that sometimes we have to earn these basics, but separate that a little bit and say, all right, I'm going to deal with how I'm feeling about my craft, but I need to make this money because I've got lunch to eat, I've got expenses, and kind of trying to separate that in your mind a little bit. And they're two different things, and trying not to so directly tie your talent to your rate, but really tying your rate to what you're doing for your clients and how you're saving them money and how you're helping them grow their business. Sometimes, a lot of freelancers will feel man, I just feel I come in and I solve these huge problems for my clients, and they go on to make, tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, billions of dollars. And all I've got is that day rate, that I got 3 years ago. And I've seen this startup, all of a sudden they're IPO, and, so really we're helping clients tremendously. So kind of remind yourself of that.
Okay, so Madeline's either going to put another question up for us or we are going to go into break. So yeah, I think we're going to go into a break. Appreciate your guys' time. Oh, there she is. Hello.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think a 15-minute break would be awesome right now.
Yeah, we agree.
Thank you, guys. That was an amazing first session. Great. So we're taking a 15-minute break. And in that 15-minute break, I would love to invite our sponsor, Thinkific, up onto the stage. Without Thinkific, this whole crash course couldn't be free. So we really appreciate them. I'm going to invite Emily, who's the head of partner marketing at Thinkific. Thinkific's a leading platform to create, market, and sell your online courses. Emily's helped hundreds of course creators along their journey and believes that sharing your knowledge through online education, you could create a genuine impact for your audience while building a thriving business that you're proud of. So here's Emily to tell us a bit more, and she'll also be doing a bit of Q&A. So make sure you put your questions in the Q&A panel. Thank you so much, Emily.
Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Hopefully you can. I was here last week with y'all, and it's been so exciting to see all the great learnings and everything that's been covered. I know we're in a break, but hopefully you'll hang out with me for a few minutes so we can chat about some other ways you can monetize and earn some more as a freelancer. If I'm looking at two different screens, bear with me. I've got the chat on this window and my content on this window. So if I'm looking back and forth, that's why. I don't want to take up too much time. I'd like to get right into it. Today, I really want to talk about, again, growing your business with an online course and how you can unlock a new stream of revenue. So all day today, you've been talking about charging as a freelancer, how to set your price points, whether you're doing fixed rates. What we're going to talk about today is how to introduce a new revenue stream. And with an online course, it's a bit more of a passive revenue stream. So before we get started, I'd love to share the story of Sarah Cordner as a quick example. She's the CEO of Main Training, a course creation expert and a certified Thinkific expert as well. Now, she not only helps clients one-to-one develop and publish high-quality online courses, but she's also a course creator herself. And by introducing online courses alongside her agency business, she's educated over 9,000 students in over 130 countries. Ultimately, by having an online course, she's been able to reach way more people than she would have in her one-to-one services. She's also encouraging her students to take action in their own businesses, and she's been able to have an incredible impact. I share this example because an online course really helps you to build brand trust right away as a freelancer, and you're able to showcase expertise around your product or your service that you're offering, and it gives you an entirely new stream of revenue, which ultimately means longer retention and hopefully more client referrals. So hopefully this is an example to kind of set the tone of where we're going to go today, what we're going to be chatting about. But usually when I start talking about online courses, the first thing that comes up is, where do I even get started? And so I want to talk about how you can choose your winning course topic. Now, your winning course topic is the intersection of your passion, your expertise, and your market demand. And now in between all of those, that is your winning course topic. So if you're watching this today and you have a notebook in front of you, I imagine a lot of you are creative people, so you probably have a pen and paper within distance. Grab that and copy this diagram down. So draw 3 circles that overlap, and in the first circle, write passion. Now in here, I want you to write down the things that light you up. If you had nothing to do and you woke up on a free day, what would you spend your day doing? What are you truly passionate about? Jot down some of those things in the passion circle. Then go over to your expertise circle. And now here, your expertise is what you're known for or what you're really good at. And so if your phone was to ring and it's somebody asking you for help, what are they asking you for help with? Is it how to, I don't know, do a brand redesign? Is it how to paint their house? How to choose the right colors? What are those things that you are an expert in and that you're known for? And then the last piece of the puzzle, and you're choosing your winning course topic, is market demand. So this is a really, really important piece, and I don't want you to skim over this, because if you're really passionate about something and you're an expert in it, but there's no market demand, it might not be the right fit for your winning course topic. An example of this is maybe you're super passionate about pasta and your expertise is jewelry making. And so you decide you are going to teach a course all about macaroni jewelry. Now, Well, in theory, it sounds like a good idea. There might not be the market demand for a macaroni jewelry course. So you'd want to make sure that you've validated demand before you spend the time to build your course. So the reason I have that one there is, what are you getting asked about in the communities you're in the forums you participate in? What are people talking about? And that's going to start to validate market demand for your winning course topic. So if you're watching this, take a screenshot here. This is a really helpful slide if you're starting to think about how you're choosing what you're going to teach and what your winning course topic will be. Now, once you have your winning course topic, I know I'm moving quickly, but once you have your topic, the next most important thing is to format your topic as a value proposition. Now, I'm going to talk about this through the lens of online course creation. Obviously, that's what I'm here for. But writing a value proposition is a really important exercise in any business. So whether you're choosing to write or build an online course or not, this is still a helpful section. And again, I encourage you to screenshot this and come back to it later. When you're writing a value proposition, there's 4 key pieces. There's your topic, your target audience, the outcome that you're going to help them achieve, and the benefit that they'll have by achieving that outcome. So you want my course on a really clear topic, whether that's cooking eggs, sewing skirts, designing landing pages, whatever it is, it has to be a very clear topic. Helps your audience, a niche audience. If you're trying to help everybody, you're not going to help anybody. So choose your niche audience that you really want to work with, whether it's busy professionals, it's DIYers, it's tech startups that you're looking to do some design work for. Really be clear on who your audience is. Then you want to help them learn something specific. So you're going to help them learn how to have a clear outcome by taking your course, whether that's learn how to have higher converting landing pages, whether it's learn how to cook quick and easy meals for a family, whether it's learn how to choose the right color palette for their brand. Whatever it is, you're choosing a clear outcome that you're going to drive through your class, and the reason why, so that they can have a very clear benefit. Now, for example, if we're talking about increasing landing page conversion, it's so they can earn more revenue and help more customers. Or if you're talking about learning how to have quick and easy meals for their family, so they can spend more time with their kids. So the outcome and the benefit is different. The outcome is the what they're going to achieve, and the benefit is why they want to achieve it. I'm going to walk you through an example, but before I do, I'm going to jump into the chat, see if there's any questions. I am keeping an eye on the chat, and I am going to have a chance to do some Q&A. So make sure you are asking questions, letting me know if there's anything you want to learn more about in the chat. Awesome. I don't see any questions about online courses. I'll keep taking a look, but before we go back to the chat, I want to share a specific example. So this is Mimi G. She's from Sew It Academy, and this is her course value proposition. So she says, my course on sewing helps DIY enthusiasts learn how to sew their own clothes so they can be more self-sufficient. So see if you could pick out her topic, her audience, the outcome, and the benefit for her audience. This is a really easy way to help guide you as you're going and building your online course. So this is like the North Star. If you have your value proposition, you can always come back and measure your course content against what you're trying to do with that course. Again, I encourage you, write it down, take a screenshot, keep working on it. This is helpful for your online course, your digital product, or any business that you're launching. It's always helpful to have your own value proposition. Now, I want to make sure there's one big thing that I haven't talked about yet. I've been here twice, hung out with you for a while now, talked about online courses and how to do that. But I want to make sure that I'm reminding you, you can start with what you have right now. And one way that you can do that is really taking time to validate demand. And by validating demand, that gives yourself permission to invest time and energy into creating a stellar course. This is particularly important. Today, we were talking about how much time you actually want to work, how many days you want to work, the trade-off between billable client hours and actually working in your business or on your business. So this is important because if you're going to go build a digital product, that might mean you take on a little less clients. And so in order to do that, I want to make sure that you've done the work to validate that your course will sell. So please, if you're watching, make me a promise. Promise you will not commit to creating a course without first validating demand. Don't take a bunch of time out and spend several months and thousands of dollars creating something that you haven't proven there's demand for. Make sure you get at least a few people, even just 5 people, to confirm that they would purchase this course from you. That is worth it, and that's worth pursuing your online course or your digital product. Now, there's a few different ways that you can validate that your online course will actually sell. The first one is doing some social media listening. Now, this is where you can join communities like this, where they're already discussing your potential topic, and you can start to determine demand. Keep an eye on the questions that are being asked consistently that you know the answer to, and you know you can help people. That could be Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, events, forums, Reddit, anywhere where your ideal audience is hanging out. If you already have your own audience, the next thing you can do is ask them. So I think we talked about this last week as well, but the best way to validate demand is to get out there and talk to your audience. If you're producing content, see what content is performing best, ask them. So there's a few questions you can always ask, like even something as simple as, I'm planning on creating a course on designing for brands, and I'm wondering, what questions do you have about that you might want me to cover? And your audience will tell you what you want your course content to be. The next is doing some competitor research. So if you want to launch a course on how to design great converting landing pages, there's already going to be some courses out there that exist. But that's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing when there's competitors out there, because that validates market demand for you and that there are already people out there paying for this service. So go take a look at it, investigate, see what they're doing, and see what you can do a little bit differently. And that's a good place to get started. And then, of course, you can always pre-sell your course topic, which is a chance for you to set up a landing page and a checkout and have your audience actually purchase your course before you've built it. Okay, now I want to make sure we're not going over time and we have a little bit of time for Q&A. So I want to dive into a quick recap on how online courses can help you grow your freelance business. There are so many ways you can use online courses, but the first way, and why I love them, is because you can attract and nurture leads for your existing business. Courses are a highly attractive and engaging way to earn quality leads, and you can also start to qualify them. If you are wanting to raise your prices and attract a more premium client, maybe you can use online courses as an early qualifier to start getting people into your world. They also add value to your services, so you can supplement your product or your service with training to boost perceived value. So if you're offering specific services, maybe you also give them a course that, I don't know, maybe you built them a landing page and you give them a little mini course that shows them how to continue to update after the initial service, or of course they can hire you again and you can continue working with them. They'll also give you an opportunity to boost your revenue. So this is really fitting for the topic today. Of course, you can work one-on-one with clients and figure out your billable hours. You can also add an additional revenue stream and teach the wider market how to do what you do. And you can create better experiences. So online courses are a great way to build trust and increase customer loyalty. You'll see longer retention and more referrals if you continue to build a relationship and have multiple opportunities for your audience to connect with you. That is a whirlwind, but I have a special offer for you. I shared this last week as well. You can go get started and create your course for free at thnk.cc/dribble free. Now, the great thing about doing this is once you get started, you're going to have a ton of resources. So you're going to have free training courses. You're going to have access to all sorts of blogs and knowledge articles. So if you're just getting started, and you're not quite sure what to do yet, don't worry, we're going to be there for you and support you throughout the whole journey. And of course, if you have any questions, I went through a lot of content in a really short amount of time today. So you can always send us a message at hello@thinkific.com if you want to learn more about online courses, about Thinkific, or how we might be able to help you in your journey. Awesome. Okay, well, again, my name is Emily. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I don't know if there were any questions coming in, so I will take a look. I'm going to jump into the chat here as well. I see a question from Gary. Is Thinkific a turnkey solution you can offer your freelance hires for their online learning business? Yeah, absolutely. So we actually, separately from this, so we've been talking about how you can build an online course, but we actually have an entire Thinkific expert program where freelancers can join and provide their services to our course creators as a Thinkific expert. So you could be designing their sites, helping them create their learning content. It's a whole other way for you to be earning. So if you want to check that out, you can see our partner program at thinkific.com/partners. So if you're looking to go the route of helping people build online courses versus building yourself, we definitely have a program for that. Awesome. I don't see any other questions coming in. We're going to have so many resources for you as you get started on your trial. So send us a message, hello@thinkific.com, if there's anything else we can help you with. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Emily. I put the link in the chat to get started on Thinkific for free. I'll put it in the chat again. So yeah, make sure you check them out. We're going to be jumping back into the second part of our second session with Mt Freelance now. But just before we do, I wanted to share with you an exclusive discount to Christo's workshop, which is on the 11th of August. Mt Freelance, they mentioned it, but it's going to be Chris20. I've put it in the chat now. Chris20 to get a 20% discount for Christo's workshop. So check it out. Now back to Mt Freelance.
We're back. How's everyone doing?
That was a good break.
We got a little fresh air. Woof. So hey, we are going to jump into negotiation, and then we want to leave way more time for Q&A, because I know like you guys are doing such a great job blowing up the chat with so many really good and thoughtful questions. So this last stretch, negotiating, right? It's one thing to say, this is what I need to make, or this is what I want my rate to be. But it's another to actually get it. So
yeah, and I think negotiating isn't just for money, right? And money, like we often think that it's just trying to get the most money you possibly can. That's not necessarily the best way to look at it. Look at it as the best life that you can have, the most flexibility, the most accommodating. Maybe you need to take a road trip across the country for some reason, and you're still able to work remotely as you're moving across the country. Let's say you have a special needs kid that needs either therapy or regular doctor's appointments or something like that. You can negotiate that time so you can take care of those things in your life. So it isn't just money.
It's kind of why we started the first session off with what's your why, really trying to take some time to say, what do you actually want out of freelance? Not because you were laid off or because you can't find your dream job full time, but freelance is this opportunity to trade energy for money, but also to really build the life you want, right? And It's maybe not, tomorrow, but that's really what what we try to help our members do.
So I saw something from a friend of mine who's actually a dietitian. He said that every day we make 200 decisions about the food we eat, which seemed like a lot. But I definitely got the point of it, is that there's lots and lots of decisions and things that we are negotiating in our own head. Andrew and I, the idea of imposter syndrome kind of like came up in the chat. And we have an opportunity, to take these thoughts, captive and take control a bit of our thinking. And I think that negotiating is a big part of that. It is realizing that a lot of the things that are happening around you could be a negotiation with your business. So we're going to go through kind of some different tactics to help start getting what you want, but also kind of maybe some of the pros and cons on some of these like ways into negotiating.
Yeah. So, for freelancers who are in demand and really in it for the money, there's a lot of people go with the sort of take it or leave it, where, a client says, what's your rate? And you say, this is my hourly, or this is my day rate. And, if you're in demand, This makes negotiating really simple. Your client can either say yes or no. You might fluctuate that a little bit based on, whether it's a big corporation or a nonprofit. But it kind of puts some of the onus on the client just to say,
or really whether you really want to work on it or not.
Right. It is also a very effective. Yeah. It's just, again, thinking about a project that is going to be tough. Maybe you ask for a little higher than you would normally. And, it's kind of take it or leave it. The key is not to negotiate, is to really say, that's it. And kind of that's what I charge.
And if you're going to play kind of that kind of hardball, as we call it, you also have to have the courage to walk away. If it's, and just say, all right, well, and if that you've got other calls coming in and things are busy and there's, or even, you have a little time off and then you have another project coming up, you can do that.
Yeah.
So.
And it speaks to, I think we had some questions around, and I know, we often have the situations of freelancer where, let's say our rate is $1,000 a day and someone gets us for, $750 and, through negotiation, and all of a sudden we're tied up for 2 months. Inevitably, the next day, your dream client's going to come to you and say, hey, are you available? And we can pay your full rate. And that's such a terrible feeling to be in with freelance. So that's why, one of the big questions we get is like, hey, if someone wants to hire me for 6 months, should I discount my rate? It's like, maybe if it's a dream client, but it just means you're not going to be making your day rate for 6 months, and you're going to have to spend the other 6 months like charging more than your day rate to get back where you need to be.
Right. So I think a lot of it it goes back to the why. If doing the business, the negotiation, finding the clients seems to be the hardest part for you and it causes you a lot of anxiety, maybe you do want to take the 6-month gig for a little less money. It's all up to you. We're not doing formulas that you have to follow. These are principles and ideas that you need to apply to your own life.
Aaron and I are big on what we call a little wiggle room, which is where how is an example of this? Hey, Aaron, what's your I'd love to hire you for this project. What's your day rate?
Well, I typically get 1,500, or I typically get 1,000, and then you kind of go from there. Or the last time I worked for you, I got this, or the job that I just wrapped up, I got this, and that way they know that.
You're leaving a little door open for me. This isn't a typical project. So in this case, I'd like to charge. Right. I'd like you to charge a little less because of it's a pitch, or it's this, or it's a nonprofit client.
But it's a great way to almost state your kind of what your open market value is, because you just wrapped up a project where you got 1,000 or 1,200 or whatever you're going for. Or I just finished up this project for Nike. I got this. If you can be specific about it, then all of a sudden they know, like, okay, this person gets this amount of money. They're busy enough where they just wrapped up another project, and it kind of gives them a little wiggle room, but not a lot, So it's a way to kind of like, avoid being kind of lowballed.
There's a psychological aspect to so much of this too. If someone knows that your normal rate is $1,200 and you are charging them $1,000, like what you've bought yourself is some flexibility, maybe, not being able to make a couple meetings. They're sort of thinking, I'm getting this.
Like there was a compromise on their end. So there's maybe some areas I can compromise on.
Right. But if they think of you as hey, last time you were 800 and that's about as much as we ever pay someone for a day, and you've gotten 1,000 out of me, even though it's the same amount of money, like all of a sudden the expectation is like, you better be hitting home runs. Like we want you in here early. We want you, we want to see you in the Slack channel in the evening, because this is, I've heard agencies say that this is more than we've ever paid a freelance before. We really thought this person was going to come in and knock it out of the park. So wiggle room is, if you're willing to negotiate, a little bit, you can kind of start high and then come down, and that suddenly, buys you a little bit of freedom and flexibility as a freelancer.
What's our next one?
What's your budget?
This is a comment that I have actually seen in the chat a number of times, where people, clients are are not revealing a budget, not having a budget, just kind of fishing for pricing and then disappearing when you I don't know how to, like, there is something very instinctual about this that don't work with lousy people, or brands, or things that feel shady, or things that are not going to value what you do. Your time is limited. That is the most limited resource, right? So if you're wasting time on something that's a dead end because you're not thinking objectively about it, you're being emotional, or you're kind of missing the red sirens going off that's saying this isn't good. One of the big ones is if they don't have a budget, like if they don't have any idea, what it's going to take to hire you. That is just time wasted, honestly, and that again is the one thing we don't get back.
Yeah.
If there is something very tactical about, if they ask you what your budget is, a lot of times we're told, well, you just gotta kind of wait. It's like a used car deal or something. You just kind of wait to have them set the price. But we are going to get into something called anchoring, which is, in a few slides here. But really what anchoring is what is the first number that this conversation is circling around. So if I say the number, I'm just going to say a random number, $22,000. And then you're going to ask me what's the down payment on this house, or whatever. Like, our mind immediately goes to the number that we were just presented. And then we're actually doing the math of, is that too expensive? Is it too cheap? Is it right? Is whatever, based off of that one number. So when a client says, hey, what's your budget to do this? You should aim high and don't be afraid to throw out the number first, because what you're going to do, let's say, and Andrew and I will be kind of playing this out later with a little role playing, but let's say they ask for, hey, we need some UX design on these 4 or 5 web pages. In your head, you're thinking, I think I can get this done in about 5 days. And maybe you throw out, they ask, well, what's the budget? What would it take to do this? And you say, hey, I've looked it over. I've asked some more questions about the project. I think we can do, I could do it for $7,000, let's say, if it's a project fee, right? And then, the client may choke on that and go, oh man, wow, we were not expecting that. We think we could do it for $4,000, right? And so you're looking at it, you say, okay, it'll take me 5 days, 4,000. They're organized. These are nice people. I like working with them. You kind of like, and then you could agree to that, or you could kind of come to a middle ground, right?
Yeah, if we can do 5,000, I can make it work.
Yeah. And then, but if you had started with 5,000, that whole conversation, 5,000 is the anchor of the conversation. Then that whole conversation may be between $2,000 and $3,000 instead of $4,000 and $5,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, I think, asking what the budget is just it is also a way to vet and say, again, to Aaron's point, if they don't have a budget, like if they haven't thought about it, like that is a big red flag. And you have to sort of go into it knowing they're probably, they're probably not super experienced, or they're trying to get a lot for a little. Another thing we kind of touched on is this idea of negotiating for what you really want. And I think, a great example of this is we have a friend who took a job at a smaller agency, kind of permalance, which is, where you're not ready to go full time, but, they want you kind of indefinitely. And they had this really frank talk where, they just were like, we can't pay your day rate 5 days a week. We can do 4. And he said, that's perfect. This was like December. He's like, because I want to go skiing every Wednesday, because there's not going to be long lift lines. So he actually negotiated, he got exactly what he wanted. He got full-time work 4 days a week, and then he got every Wednesday off to go skiing with his family. And I'm sure, he answered some emails, or maybe there was a little morning work on a Wednesday or an evening. But, it's really like, I think sometimes we get so focused on the money that sometimes what we really want is the flexibility. We already have 2 projects going. We want to take this third one. So what we really need is, a schedule that is going to allow us to, not get overwhelmed and not suddenly have, meetings double or triple booked. So, and I think most clients will gladly trade some kind of flexibility or time off. Maybe it's a two-month job, but you have a vacation, and you say, hey, look, I'll take a little lower rate, but I got to protect these 2 weeks. Hey, I'll even find someone to come in and replace myself. But, generally speaking, they may, their clients are into saving money. So they may say, hey, that's actually great. We'll make sure that we reach phase 1 of the project right before your vacation, and we'll focus on other stuff, and we won't have to pay you for that 2 weeks, and then we'll finish the project, and we'll even extend it a week. So, a lot of times, I think when we get that email, we think, oh my gosh, this is set in stone. They need someone to start Monday, and it has to be this amount of time. And, a lot of times that's just, that's kind of where their heads are at right now. But as you start to negotiate things, you can get, to a place that is going to make everyone happy.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. This is a simple tactic, but oftentimes when people ask what your day rate is, there are some drawbacks of using email. But if you are going to, oftentimes it's easier to have the courage to kind of say a big number or say something that's a little bit more than you've asked for in the past over email. And there are, sometimes some drawbacks to that. And one of the drawbacks is the fact that you don't get to have like this exchange. I don't want to say all recruiters, but sometimes if they get too big of a number, they just know they're not going to be able to find middle ground. They move on. Sometimes you don't hear back from them. But if it's somebody that you have a good relationship with, somebody that isn't going to, talk about ghosting. But if someone's going to ghost me for asking for the rate that I'm worth, then I don't want to work for them. It's that simple. So, granted, these are just tactics. Everyone has a little different disposition, different approach. But if it's really hard for you to say, hey, I'm $800 a day, say it over email and just say, you can throw in a couple extra, extra ideas or bonuses for them, to kind of go along with $800. Like, hey, but I can be available on the weekends if we need to work weekend days, something like that, to kind of accommodate that higher ask.
Yeah, I just find that, I love having an in-person conversation, and inevitably they're going to ask what your rate is. And I always just say, hey, let me give this an hour or two. Like, I want to think through it. I want to look at my schedule. I want to see what else I have going on. And then I'm going to write back to you what I think is, realistic from a budget and time standpoint. And I think for me, again, because I'm not a take it or leave it person, again, it just gives me the chance to just evaluate how badly I want a job. Again, if I'm juggling, can I really accommodate it? Maybe even a chance to reach out to some people in my network, see what this client is like, see what they've gotten, as far as charging. And then emailing, I like it because, again, sometimes that number gets stuck here in the throat. But then also you have it in writing, and they have a chance too to react, and maybe, maybe they need to bounce it off a few people, but, they have a little time then to react and maybe counter offer or, say, yes, but, we need X, Y, Z. We're also, we also are open to trade, which, I think, sometimes, if you're working for a client that has something that you would buy anyway, you can actually take some trade, or, if it's a nonprofit and they say, we just don't have any money, sometimes you can say, well, hey, What are some of the, assets you have? Maybe the founder of this nonprofit has this wonderful vacation home that is sitting empty 50 weeks out of the year, and that because you've gone to their, annual gala and they auction it off every year. And you can say, hey, look, I can do this work, but, if you can't pay me, I need to get something in trade, something in kind. We've worked for, wineries where, you take some money, but you also take a couple cases of wine. And, they're sort of paying you what like the wholesale wine rate was. And then all of a sudden we've got holiday gifts for all our clients.
Right. So, I think the idea of anchoring is another element of negotiation. And, Andrew loves this one. I think it's great. When you go to the movie theater, this is the size of the medium popcorn and it's $7, and then this is the size of the enormous bucket giant popcorn and it's $9, right? And basically, instead of anchoring on a high price, they're actually making the low price much less valuable, so you always kind of go for the bigger, higher price, right?
$9, I get for $2 I get twice as much popcorn.
Right.
Never mind the fact that you're paying $9 for like 25 cents of popcorn.
And so there are all sorts of ways that you can use anchoring. I mean, we don't really have time to get into a lot of it today, but that would be something to look up. Chris Du has a great video for that. I think we can probably find it and put it in the chat. But he explains it in a really interesting way. Here it is. I'll share it. But one of the principles of anchoring is essentially putting the highest price first. And the other thing is creating options, right? So when clients ask for a proposal, are you just giving them one option? Oftentimes that's what we do, right? We just like, well, I think that'll take me 20 hours times X amount equals this, and that's my proposal. But Andrew and I are going to kind of role play me kind of giving a different type of proposal. So Andrew, let's Andrew's going to be the client.
I'll be the client. I should have a hat that says client. I am the typical design client that everyone loves, that I have just started my own business. And I'm coming to you because I need a website.
Oh, what type of business is it?
Oh, it's an app.
Oh, an app.
No, it's not. It's e-commerce. It's e-commerce website.
E-commerce.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff are you selling?
We're going to sell socks one at a time.
Oh.
Kind of our thing is like you get one sock and then you have to buy the other, so that we're going to double the money. That's our big model. And they don't have to be the same color, right?
Okay.
So we're giving people freedom and we're making twice as much money. That's our big idea.
So you need an e-commerce website, and you need a logo, kind of branding system. Is that what you're talking about?
I guess so, because we don't have any of that.
Yeah.
Because I'm the typical startup client.
Oh, so you just have this idea of selling single socks.
Yeah. So you're saying I need like a brand?
Well, yeah. I mean, so, like, I think you're trying to, you're definitely going to need a logo. Along with the logo, you're going to need a branding system, a communication.
I'm so glad we're talking, because I want it all. Yeah. So
what's your budget for this project?
$10,000.
Wow. Okay. That's, it seems like a good budget to get started with. And I could imagine
ideally all done by Friday. Wink.
So pretty quick. Okay. Well, you know what? Let me go back and put together a plan, and I will circle back and we'll take a look at what we can do. Okay.
I can't wait.
Okay. So now I'm going to go back to my secret bat cave. This is acting. This is really funny. Andrew is actually an accomplished actor, and so he's really carrying this one. This one. So I'm going to go back, and instead of just coming back with one option of saying this is what you get for your $10,000 budget, this is what I can do, or I'm even accommodating. Like if he told me he needs an e-commerce site that pairs up single socks and a branding and a logo. In most cases, that's I'm not going to do that for $10,000. I don't want to do that. E-commerce sites take forever to build. I would be able to do I logos, kind of branding systems and stuff are definitely more in my wheelhouse than website. So this is the proposal that I'm going to come back to Andrew with. I'm going to show him this first. And this is the first thing that I'm going to show him. And then on the next page, I might roll out this whole thing. And so what this is, the $7,000 one is for me. Okay, I'll hold this up for a second so you can see it. Is he asked for a logo. I'm going to give him a logo and a branding system for $7,000. The reason that I'm doing that is because that's in my wheelhouse. That's what I know I can do quickly. I know that the quality is really good, right? I don't want to get into an e-commerce website with Andrew, who's all unorganized for that amount of money. But what I've also done is now I've said, okay, to roughly do what you've asked for, it's going to be $21,000. And it's going to include the logo, the branding, the e-commerce website. And I'm going to kind of limit the scope on the website. So we'll only do two rounds of changes. I need to have approvals by this date before we move up. But then what I have listed over here is all those things plus all the other things that Andrew hasn't thought about that he needs for his company that I know I can provide. And so that might be blog writing, SEO. It might be like a bunch of different things. It might be some email marketing campaigns. It might be some social assets. It might be some posters, a few other things that I want to add to this package. And because, and now if he takes the lowest price, which I know he can afford, I'm not getting into a part of the project that's going to be crazy and last forever. I'm doing exactly what I'm really, really good at. If he takes the middle, that's I've essentially doubled his budget to take the middle to do the two things that he asked me to do, plus a few little extras. Or if he's incentivized to take the biggest one, because it's going to provide so much more business value for what he's doing. Most likely you will be shocked how many people take the biggest number. It happens all the time. It happens. And if you frame it that way and you roll it out where it's anchored and there's a value and there's kind of like, we're actually anchoring this conversation off of his budget for 10,000 that makes him think he's going to get all these things. And actually we're going to show him what he will get for that. And then he can make the decision, well, I'm definitely going to need all these things on the big long column, right? I'm going to need them. So I can come up with that extra budget, right? And then maybe at the extra budget, it also is like, well, maybe he pays closer attention to it because he knows he's got a bigger investment made. So anyhow, hope that was helpful. Andrew, you want to add in anything there?
Well, and just what you've done is, what we talked about last week is, rather than just saying, oh, you've now shifted in my mind from a vendor who can make a website to actually like a strategic partner that is helping me through business needs that I hadn't even thought through again. And that's where all of a sudden Aaron evolves from someone I think I'm hiring to do a website to maybe someone that I want to partner with long term to like really grow this business. And maybe Aaron is now hiring on to get website people, but I'm kind of turning to him, and all of a sudden he's become kind of my agency because all of a sudden we get this thing up, and then we need to advertise it, and he's doing paid social, and he's doing all the other things that a brand needs to do. So we're going to touch on a couple last things. We want to leave plenty of time for Q&A. This is just like, we're such big fans of using accountants. Like, I know we talk about money and math here, but like, we're not tax experts. Like, an accountant is tax deductible, hire one. Also, for those of people who are looking for health insurance, we talk about health brokers. Not everyone knows about them, but they're actually someone who's going to help you identify like the doctors and services you need and actually shop around. So, healthcare is notoriously
match you with a healthcare provider, and actually compare rates. It's very confusing. And if a broker helps you, it actually doesn't cost you anymore. The healthcare agency actually pays the broker for brokering that deal. So it's like, a big part of like when we talked about what we need to make and what our day rate might be, what our hourly might be, that's doing the type of work that we're actually good at, we're trained at, we enjoy, we're like creatively inspired by. Taxes, accounting, all this stuff. Honestly, at least for me, it's my worst nightmare. I just bring on help and work more, raise your rates to afford to pay for these people. That's kind of how we approach it.
Yeah. And really, I mean, accountants aren't that expensive and they're tax deduction. Health brokers don't even typically charge the health insurance. So just, and again, I think this is where having a network, kind of having, a community is so important. So I think the last thing we'll talk about is, investing in yourself, so that is carving out the 3 hours to be here for this workshop. For those of you who are thinking about it, we would really encourage you to join Mt Freelance.
And we've talked about, and we kind of made the illustration of Mt Freelance like a gym membership for your business. There's a variety of components to it. One is the lessons that we go over. There's 35 lessons where Andrew and I will tackle a specific subject. And, we tackled 2 or 3 of the areas that the course covers, here on the Dribble course, but there are 35 lessons. So pretty much anything that you could imagine would come up in freelance. We cover there. The other thing is through the free Facebook group, which is private, it's only for members. You get access to us and the community that's growing inside of there. There are so many great people, helpful. It's a very positive place. There's encouragement. There's advice. There's we share tools, we share job opportunities. In fact, one of our members is named Aaron, but he shared that this year he had made $70,000 above what he made the previous year, and it was all through people that he had met and been hired through Mt Freelance. So that was obviously very exciting for Andrew and I to hear as we're working to help people with their business. We do portfolio reviews in there and give advice on portfolios if we're seeing things that can be changed. So the price on Mt Freelance is $297 a year, but with the Dribble discount, it's $100 off, so it's $197 for the annual. Or you could apply. There's a lifetime membership as well that some people like to do, and that's the $100 can also be applied towards that if you choose. Some of the other topics that we cover in there is how to communicate, how to handle paperwork, potential problems with clients if they don't like your work, potential problems with clients if the scope of things have really evolved, how to juggle multiple clients, how to say no, how to maintain some of the business growth things for your freelance business, how to reward clients, how to assess the best working environment for you. There's a lot of stuff in there. You want to add anything, Andrew?
Yeah, just we've got right here, and we would love to. We'd love to, again. I think the big thing is there are communities, and a lot of them are anonymous, and a lot of them you get sort of shouted down for asking, basic questions, and we really try to keep it positive, and I think what's for us, it's just been really awesome to network with all these other people. I don't think we really kind of expected it to be a place where people are finding jobs, but we're starting to have recruiters come to us. And we're also there's a lot that we're just trying to offer up to everyone. So obviously the podcast is for everyone. We've got blog articles. So if you if you're looking for more information, we also have a weekly email that is just promoting stuff like this. Sometimes it's stories, sometimes it's just offers and stuff like that. So we'd love to have you be part of it.
Yeah. So I mean, one thing Andrew and I really encourage people to do is kind of be decisive with your business, kind of move forward with confidence, continue to bet on yourself. This works out to like $16 or $17 a month, if you like, so what you've learned today, what you would continue learning and continue developing through a membership, we believe you'll probably pay for this, like, easily, and kind of the upgrade and income or flexibility or whatever that you're getting probably with your first job. So there is a shot clock on this to stay in the dribble theme. Tomorrow night, the offer will expire. So we encourage you to jump on it today if you can. And that will expire at midnight Pacific time on Thursday. So part of it is like, we don't want to drag it out, but we really would love to have you guys join us in Mt Freelance and kind of continue having contact and access to us. So
cool. We want to shout out and give Thinkific just a shout out for making this course free. So a big thanks to them. So we are not done. We wanted to leave lots of time for some Q&A. So I love to see people are asking questions in the chat and other people are answering. But I know you guys have also been voting up some questions. So maybe we can answer some of the most popular questions.
Yeah, and then also, we could have a couple people come up on stage as well to ask a question. We just ask that you kind of think through your question a little bit, so it's not a 5-minute long question. Okay, how do you raise your rates with an already established client? That's a great one. You want to take it?
Yeah, I think I think that the time to do that is after you've had a win. After you've had if you do a series of short projects, after you've had a good one, or maybe if it's a longer project, you've just had a great presentation and you sold some work through. I think that's the time to say, hey, look, just heads up, I'm going to be raising my rate across the boards. Would love to just, if it's ongoing, would love to discuss, are you comfortable if we start that 2 weeks from now, or, if it's a new project, just say, hey, and depending on I think, I know a lot of times we want sort of this black and white answer, should I say budget first, or should I wait for, or should I ask my client? And it's so much, it's every client's different, so if you have a client that you have a very formal relationship with, you would treat that more formally, versus if it's a client that you've become friends with because you've been working with for 5 years, you can say, hey, it's crazy. I have never given myself a raise in 4 years. So I'm doing it, and they're probably going to be happy for you. And again, if as long as it's not going from, 80 to 160, if it's reasonable, and you can even say, hey, just so starting at this point, I'm going to be giving myself a 7% raise every year. And I think if you can if it doesn't feel arbitrary, but there's some like thinking behind it and you explain it a little bit, that'll kind of help them just be like, oh, okay, I understand. Like, you're a person, that has financial needs. And this isn't just like meant to disrupt my budget.
Yeah, I think that the other thing is you could also let people know at the beginning of the year as the year flips over is another moment in time where you could kind of just like, hey, just so you know, we're gonna be working off a little bit of a higher rate based on inflation or my demand or whatever it is.
Yep.
All right. Hope that helped, Court.
No. Is it dumb to have multiple hourly rates depending on the type of work you're doing? Say brand design versus brand strategy. No, I mean, I think, in some ways, I remember when I was a kid, I was really into like comic books and collectibles and baseball cards. And, you'd look up in the price guide and think, oh, this is what it's worth. And, no, really, anything is only worth what someone is willing to pay for it. So, that's where, again, like, if you have clients that put different values on these things, then absolutely it makes more sense to charge more for the thing that they're valuing more. So again, I think having multiple rates makes a lot of sense. I mean, I have my sort of Silicon Valley rate, my big agency rate, my small client, I mean, I have like kind of 4 rates that, for when I take on hourly projects based on, sort of the size of the client and sort of the worth of the work that they're doing out in the world.
Good one. Okay, how do I start charging when I'm a fresh grad and my type of work is super diverse right now, based on university? So essentially spec or portfolio work. Well, to me, charging would be like you're going to have to work your way into getting work. And so charging for it, I think, Andrew and I kind of, I hesitate to say this, but if you're not charging at least $50 an hour for your work, you're going to have challenges doing this full time, because there's going to be there's going to be some gaps, some days, some slow days, maybe some slow weeks. And so, again, Rawan, I'm not sure if I'm quite answering your question, but last week we talked a lot about what you would do to get work. And then I think that you would do a little research if somebody brings you on and start asking other people, getting opinions from mentors, from people that have been there before, telling them, I'm $50 an hour, and then see what they say. I mean, and if somebody really can't afford a designer, then you need to keep looking for a better client. So I think that, I would just throw out a number, make sure that you are good enough and that your work is good enough to back that up. And that's also quite hard when you're freshly graduated and you're trying to get out there.
But also, tap into, the people that graduated, 2 or 3 years before you that you're connected to, and start asking them like, hey, what did you charge right out of school? What are you charging now?
And Celia says, I work at an art and design university and we pay students $50 an hour for the work they do for us. So I think you kind of have to have the courage to kind of put your flag in the ground and say, all right, this is what I'm worth, and go from there and adjust accordingly. But I think that will help,
Yeah, I think too, I mean, if you're freelance, you're going to have some projects that are disasters. Like, we have all made mistakes. We have all had projects where they went horribly, or we figured out what our hourly was and it was terrible. And the key is to like learn from that and to adjust. And, like, those are inevitable, but what we can do then is learn from those and share those experiences with others, and make sure we're kind of course correcting the next time around.
Hi.
Oh, hello.
Hey.
So my question is about value-based pricing. I know earlier you briefly mentioned that, and I have found myself in this kind of pricing situation a lot recently, just because I have a lot of friends who are in the venture capitalist startup sort of industry and who know I'm a designer and are approaching me for design work. And I don't want to sell myself short. I don't want to, just be doing things for free because they're my friends. But, these are, a lot of the times they're things I'm really excited about. And I could see being, having a lot of potential, like you guys mentioned. And I know, and you acknowledge this, that there's a lot of different ways you can approach these types of things. And I'm just wondering if you have any examples or any just quick tips for how to navigate these types of situations.
Yeah. When you're talking about like doing value pricing with venture, where you're actually kind of getting equity or getting shares, or oftentimes in the early stages they're kind of ghost shares, like they're not really technically worth anything unless a lot of the good things happen. I would remind you that if you're going, it's high risk if you're going to kind of do that. And you would also, you're really betting on the founders and the people running like a startup in the same way that an investor would. So I would say one of the things with value pricing is you don't want to have like all your clients on value pricing. You want to be really selective. So you want to like, maybe you have an hourly here and you have a project fee over here, and these are really close to like your full rates. And then you're like, okay, well, I have this other project that I could mix in as kind of a value with some value pricing, where I'm going to kind of take some of the risk on with them because I believe in it, or I believe in the founders. I think they can really, I really think that they're onto something here. But it's very high risk. So I would just make sure that you don't over index and have too much of that in your kind of client mix.
Yeah. Two thoughts. One would be to be really clear, if as you're negotiating this, to be really clear on like what you're getting. So if it's shares, or it's a percentage of the company, like what are their plans for actually like selling the company, or and potentially even bringing in a lawyer if you're at that level. I do have, I've worked with a couple agencies that have, to Aaron's suggestion, mostly have work for hire or, agency of record relationships, but have taken on like a, percentage of the company. And what invariably happens is like the company just keeps reinvesting profits and growing, so that they never actually make any money because they're never actually showing a profit. So the other thing I would say is, we've got this great community. Does anyone, kind of want to raise their hand to connect with Sarah, who has some experience, working with, tech startups? I think, just to be completely transparent, that's, that specific situation isn't our specialty. But I'm wondering if we have anyone here who has and might be able to connect with Sarah and give some best practices on how to do that. Yeah. And that's part of it too, is like we have a lot of expertise, but I think one of the great things about having the whole Mt Freelance's community is sometimes, we're just like, haven't done that. But connecting people that have.
Well, thanks so much. I took notes on the things you said, and that's definitely helped.
Awesome.
Great. Thanks for joining us. Let's see.
How do you work out a pricing scheme for assets that will directly bring profit to a business versus assets that are more direct, i.e. merch they will sell in their shop versus an illustration for a social post? I think typically, stuff that's like...
well, I can jump in.
Yeah.
There's I believe it's called the Art Directors Guild, or maybe it's a design, but there are guides out there that actually help you build out essentially licensing fees, or work that's priced differently if they're going to go and take, say, an illustration that you're doing, and maybe they're going to throw it on a t-shirt. Some people would be, oh, that's fine. Yeah, AIGA, that's a good one. A graphic design has a guide that'll help you with that. But also, you hear stories of sometimes like this shirt, for whatever reason, becomes extremely popular and extremely profitable. And you would want to protect yourself on the back end. A lot of times when you're licensing, though, sometimes you own the intellectual property, so you're actually not being hired by them by the hour to create it. If you're doing work for hire, they probably own the asset. If you are not doing work for hire and you're actually creating the asset on your own, and then you're licensing it to them, then they would be paying you a flat fee, or essentially a royalty or commission throughout the sale of the product. But again, I think as you're getting going, I think it's good to be aware of this stuff. I also think in the big picture, you really want to make sure that you are accommodating and easy to work with. And so I would kind of make sure that you approach that thoughtfully in terms of like setting that up. But I do think, photographers, their images are licensed by different people over and over and over again, and they make money with that. So
yeah, it also might make sense to start talking to reps. So, if you're an illustrator, much like a photographer or a director or even a cinematographer, you can, have a rep that is going to basically be taking over those negotiations. And, of course, they're going to get a percentage, but, they're going to get you far more. And, if that's a pain point, that's where, a rep can not only do those negotiations, but start getting your illustrations out to a much wider audience.
Great.
Hi, my name is Essen. I'm from a third world country. And so my question is that most of the times when you're coming from a third world country like Pakistan or Nigeria or Bangladesh, people from outside world like US or Canada or other countries, they don't pay you well. They're expecting that they pay less you. Like they're just like, sometimes I have one client who pays me well, but even that client is like, he's hesitant to pay me well, but he pays other people really well. I don't know how to negotiate on that just because I'm from a third world country, even though I provide a really good value proposition to him. There's this one project ongoing right now, and I've been working for him for like a whole year. And so, although the money I'm making is still better than what I would make in the market here in Pakistan, but it's not anywhere close to the money that I would make in US or any other freelancer would make. So last year I made around 20K, right? But the thing is that I worked for a whole year on that one project to make that 20K, right? But what if I want to make like 60K or 50K at least, what if I want to move out or something like that? That's my question.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the tactics that we talked about in the last lesson are ways to expand your client base, right? So if you're making 20K working for one client, even though it's going to be hard to find other clients that are going to pay you the way that you want to be paid, you're going to have to break out, because you're not probably going to get that one client to be able to move from 20K to 50K, right? So you're going to have to start finding more clients, right? And I think obviously where you live presents some other challenges and that type of thing, but I definitely think that there's still business happening. There's still opportunities, right? Again, I don't know what they are exactly, but I do believe that there's abundance out there in terms of finding the right fit. So that would be one piece of advice. Do you have any other thoughts, Andrew?
Well, I mean, one thought would be, and we sometimes have strategists who join Mount Freelance, and a strategist is something that very sophisticated marketing people understand the value of, but most clients that don't. So what we've actually recommended to them is putting together a deck that kind of explains what they do. So there may be a little bit of an education where you could, what if you created, like a series of posters or even a video, or kind of use some of your design skills to kind of tell the story of why you should be like that, Pakistani designers should be being paid higher rates, whether and so doing a little education around, whether it's like that, that, you are aspiring to do these things that require you to make that kind of money, or proving that your work is every bit as effective as work that people are paying less from, or but just sort of, again, trying to make that argument, so that you are kind of going on the offensive, and not just sort of, like if someone says, here's, I'm only going to pay you this much, you can say, hey, actually, like, I know you pay more for, designers in the US, and here's actually why I need to be making more,
Right.
And so I think, we find a lot, like, I think we mentioned this or last week, is like when you have clients that haven't worked with marketing creatives before, there's a little bit of education, so I think, and maybe even also, if this has been going on for a year, is to sort of, to say, hey, look, we're at a point where, it's been a year, like I give myself a raise every year, and this is, like, so I'm going to go up, at least, like 5%, and,
Right.
see how it goes, or, even say, hey, I'm considering my raise. Like, I feel like I've been doing really fabulous work. I would love to build in, like a more substantial raise based on, like, and make it a conversation, or even, hey, can we build in some bonuses where if I continue to, meet all these design benchmarks and get my work, I would love to actually be able to double my rate, which is still going to be way less than you're going to find, you're paying, these other people in your stable. But just kind of trying to, doing a little education and like a little negotiation.
Right.
But
Thank
yeah,
you.
and absolutely, I think, we've got people here from all over the world. So, again, if anyone has, wants to connect or with Ashan, or has some specific ideas, like, we have a lot of privilege being here in the US, but I know we've got people who probably have some other ideas and insights, and it would be great if you guys would be able to share.
Can I ask one more question though? Can I ask one more question? Just one more. Uh, I want to ask if there is a marketplace that's specifically more diverse to it. For example, I work on Fiverr, and so what happens is that if I'm offering something for $200, and I know that the price I'm offering is really, really good, that I'm offering $200, but there's always going to be someone who's offering the same thing for $10 or $5, because Fiverr marketplace is like that. So it's really hard to penetrate in that market. And because there is a tag in there that tells you that, okay, so this person, this freelancer is from Pakistan, I can't really negotiate on that price afterwards, because they know they're coming from me. Like, even not from people from Nigeria are coming to me to get that thing done, and usually their visit is like $50 or $100. It's not worth it. So which marketplace should I go to where they can't see my country, or where it's easy for me to penetrate or put a value proposition they would accept?
That's a little bit of a tough question. I mean, we obviously, you're hitting on some of the drawbacks of Fiverr, right?
Yeah.
Some of the things, challenges. I do think, I do know that Dribble is associated with, I think it's called Creative Market, and that's an opportunity where you can sell, essentially create your own stock illustration, your own licensable products, and sell on there. And I don't think people care at all where you're from. It's more just like, do I like this product? Do I want to buy it? Right? And typefaces,
Yeah.
backgrounds, screen, all those different things. So you could go on there and look, and that could be a place where you're not actively doing something for a client, but you're creating an asset that people can download over and over, and you make money on it, right? So
Right.
The other thing is, LinkedIn, I mean, I have seen dozens and dozens of people here in this community that we've created here in the last couple hours, eager to connect over LinkedIn. So, is starting to use opportunities like this to build your network and connect with designers in places where, rates are higher, and, to start following all these wonderful Instagram channels, and researching some people's work and starting to create some relationships where, hey, I like your work, you like mine. It would be great if you could refer some work my way. Maybe especially when it's, you're too busy or it's a little less than you can make. But, for me, that would be actually a great rate. And I would, and again, using this time to kind of start to expand your network and make some connections with folks in other countries. And, a lot of work is on LinkedIn. If you get the LinkedIn chat, and the more you have, connections that are in places where rates are higher, the more you're going to be exposed to those kind of jobs. And again, I think a huge piece of being freelance is having that list of people that you can refer work to. And, as you start to grow that, as that starts to become reciprocal, that's where, hopefully you're going to be able to, kind of move into some work that's going to get you, sort of more, US style rates.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great to meet.
Oh, where
we are.
How'd that happen? We're at noon all of a sudden.
Man.
That went so quick.
Well, I think we're wrapping it up here. Madeline and everyone at Dribble, thank you so much for hosting us. This has been a really, really fun time for Andrew and I, and just awesome participation from everyone here. It's been really fun.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate you doing this crash course. Okay, so
If I'm talking over you, Madeline, but it looks like this is wrapping up. We do really encourage you in the next 24 hours, come join Mt Freelance on a discount. We'd love to keep in touch with you and keep walking with you guys along the way of your freelance journey. So
yeah, and I think we're going to sign off here, but maybe Madeline can keep the chat open just so that for a little bit, so people can continue to connect. And then, again, so many people, 1,000 comments ago were eager to connect on LinkedIn and stuff. So leaving that open for a little bit would be great. But thank you all so much for spending this time with us. This has been really fun.
yeah, thank you, guys. Totally. So I'll leave this chat comment open. We also have a Slack. I'll send you an email after this session. It's going to have a post-event survey in it. We would love to hear what you thought we did well and what you thought we could improve on. And also we'd love to hear any suggestions of future workshops you'd like us to do. We do have a workshop in 2 weeks' time for UI UX designers. It's all about mobile interfaces. So if you would like to come to that, I've got a discount for you. DM me for the mobile UI UX design workshop. After that, we've got Chris Doe's workshop, and I've got a discount for that as well. I'll send you discounts in the email that I'm going to send around. And tomorrow there'll be another email with this session recording. So you're going to get a recording of this session. I'm going to send you the homework PDF. I'm going to send you the recap PDF. I'm going to send you the codes, discount codes, and also the codes for Mt Freelance, and also the code from Thinkific if you want to get started on our sponsors' get started building online courses from Thinkific, who are our amazing sponsors. So look out for all those emails. We'd love to hear your feedback. Definitely come to a future Dribbble workshop and use the discount codes that I send you in the emails. Thank you so much. I can't wait to speak to you all on Slack and to see you at another workshop. See you soon, guys. I'll email you.